Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
କେମିତି ଅଛନ୍ତି ରାଜଲକ୍ଷ୍ମୀ ମ୍ୟାମ୍?
ଭଲ।
How are you ମ୍ୟାଡ଼ାମ୍? ଭଲ ଅଛନ୍ତି?
ଆଜ୍ଞା।
ହଁ କିଛି କହୁଛନ୍ତି?
ନାଇଁ ମ୍ୟାମ୍, ଛୁଆ ପାଟି କରୁଛି।
Okay. Today I will discuss about research methodology. What do you mean by research? What is the meaning of research? Research କହିଲେ ଆମେ କ'ଣ ବୁଝିବା ମ୍ୟାଡ଼ାମ୍ କୁହନ୍ତୁ?
ଗୋଟେ ବିଷୟରେ ଏକ୍ସଟ୍ରା ଜାଣିବାକୁ ହେଲେ ତାପରେ ରିସର୍ଚ୍ଚ କରିବାକୁ ପଡେ।
ହଁ ସେ research କହିଲେ ଆମେ କ'ଣ ବୁଝିବା? What do you mean by research? Search for a new thing. Re means again and again. Okay. Research. Searching for a new things, that is the research. Understood? जो जिनस ऑलरेडी रिसर्च बेस्ड ହେଇକି ଅଛି ତାକୁ ଆମେ फाइंड आउट କରିବା एंड जहाँ भी न होची न्यू इन्वेंशन କରିବା, that one is the research. Okay, बुझिए ना?
Yes, ma'am.
Today I will discuss about the basic concept of epidemiology. Okay, what is what is the meaning of epidemiology? Epidemiology, the basic concept of epidemiology, concept and the definition. What is epidemiology? Epidemiology is nothing. Epidemio and logy. Epi means the meaning of epi is the among, and domos, the meaning of domos is the population or the people. And you already know about that. Logos means study. Study about the male epidemiology is the simplest and the most direct method of the studying the cause of the disease in the humans. Study about the cause of the disease is the in case of humans it is called as the epidemiology, and this epidemiology is the discipline that describes mainly quantifies and the postulates causal mechanism for the health phenomena, specifically the study of the distribution and the determinants of the disease frequency in human population. Okay, mainly to study about the distribution and the determinants of the disease frequency in the human population is called as the epidemiology. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
बुझी मैम?
हाँ हाँ.
Epi, EPI, epidemio, and logi. You know that logi means logos. Logos means study.
Study.
Epi means studies. EPI. Epi means what?
Among the people.
Population. People.
Uh,
It is called as the population. And them, epi meanings upon, amongst, and demos is the your
people.
people or the population. Okay.
Uh,
And epidemiology is the mainly the study of the distribution and the determinants of the disease frequency in the human population. Specifically in the epidemiology, we will discuss about the distribution, determinants, and the disease frequency. It is called as the epidemiology. What is determinant? What do you mean by determinant? What is the meaning of determinant? Specifically in the epidemiology ना हमें पढ़िबा about the गोटे population रे गोटे group रे a group of people मानन नहीं कि सेमानकर disease रो main कथा हो the frequency कौन the determinant कौन and the distribution कौन. This is the determinant disease and the distribution of the disease. That is the epidemiology. What is the determinant? What do you mean by determinant? କୁହନ୍ତୁ କୁହନ୍ତୁ ଜାଣିଛନ୍ତି କିଛି ମାନେ ଏମିତି କିଛି ଇଏ ନାହିଁ ଅଜଣା ଜିନିଷ ନାହିଁ yes Rajalakshmi
Yes, ma'am.
don't know what do you mean by determinant AIDS AIDS जो होउची AIDS रो ଗୋଟେ पॉजिटिव ऑर्गेनिज्म अछि जो that organism is mainly responsible for the cause of this immunodeficiency
Deficiency
syndromes
virus. Virus.
like for the causing of the TB, na another microbacteria tuberculosis, that is the tuberculosis, is occurred due to the infection of the microbacterium tuberculosis. Okay, that is the causative organism which is responsible for the cause of the what tuberculosis. जो पॉजिटिव
Sir,
ऑर्गेनिज्म जो डिजीज में रेस्पॉन्सिबल जो डिजीज में जो फैक्टर रेस्पॉन्सिबल दैट इज योर डिटरमिनेंट
determinant.
बुझिए ना
Yes, ma'am. हाँ.
आर यू अंडरस्टैंड
हाँ, हाँ.
The determinant is the factor or event mainly that are capable of the bring about a change in the health. Example is the mainly the Microbacterium tuberculosis. It causes the tuberculosis, which cause the mainly TB. Similarly, AIDS virus, chemical agent that may be some of the chemical agents. The main cause of the carcinoma is due to the intake of excess chemical based food. Regular basis we are consuming the chemical based food, and that due to the intake of that chemicals that the chemicals may be in carcinogenic in nature. Due to the due to that carcinogenic effect in future it may be leads to the carcinoma. Okay, and that is that chemical agent or that the chemical preservative or the chemical product is mainly responsible for the carcinoma. That chemical product is called as the determinant. बुझिए ना
Yes, ma'am.
And what is distribution? Distribution is nothing. Distribution means distribution is mainly involves the analysis of the data according to the time scale over which the events mainly occur. Mainly the places where the events occur. That is the distribution. And mainly the categories of the person to whom they occur. Distribution of disease considers such questions as who is the getting the disease within the population group and where and when the disease is occurring. The disease distribution may vary from one population group to the another population, like the diabetes. Diabetes is very common in the common in the rural population groups and to the urban upper income groups. If we will go through the if we will go through the statistical data, na, those who are living in the very high economic status HIG groups, they are very prone towards the diabetic. But those who are belongs to the LIG group, na, they are always depend upon the what for food and nutrition. They directly or indirectly they will depend upon the regular basis. They will depend on the where in their mainly their work is the physical activity. Due to that only they are not easily prone towards the diabetic. That's why the distribution of the disease is also the major factor among the population. Okay, in some area or some groups that disease is very prone. In other area, na, it will be decreases. And those who are belong to that high socio-economic status, they due to the sedentary lifestyle, due to their the intake of highly rich food and the fast food, junk food, and the living style is very different. They will not do any kind of physical activity. These all are the factors. Due to that only they are very prone towards the diabetic mellitus. This is the distribution of the diseases. ଆମେ ଯଦି ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କ କେସରେ ଦେଖିବା ସମସ୍ତଙ୍କୁ ଜେନେରାଲି ଡାଇବେଟିକ୍ ହେଇନଥାଏ ଯଦି ଇଫ୍ ୟୁ ୱିଲ୍ କମ୍ପେୟାର ଏମଙ୍ଗ ଦ ରିଚ୍ ପର୍ସନ୍ ଆଣ୍ଡ ଦ ଭେରି ପୁଅର୍ ପିପୁଲ୍ ତ ପୁଅର୍ ପିପୁଲ୍ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କର ଯେତିକି ଇନଟେକ୍ କରିଥାନ୍ତି ତାଙ୍କର ଫିଜିକାଲ ଡ୍ୟୁ ଟୁ ଦ ଫିଜିକାଲ ଆକ୍ଟିଭିଟି they will expenditure more energy from their body whatever they will be consume na in the calorie form throughout the day they will be expenditure that energy but those who are belongs to the HIG group they will not do it they are very they are each and every time uh, they are maintaining their sedentary lifestyle due to that only they are very prone towards the what lifestyle disorder this is the distribution of the diseases ବୁଝିହେଲା
ମ୍ୟାମ୍ ମ୍ୟାମ୍ ଯୋଉ ଡାଇବେଟିସ୍ କହିଲେ ସେଟା ସବୁବେଳେ ତ
ହଁ
ସେମିତି ଲାଇଫଷ୍ଟାଇଲ ଯୋଗୁ ନ ହେଇ ବି ପାରେ ଜେନେଟିକାଲି ବି ତ କିଛି ଥାଏ।
ଗୋଟି ହଁ ମୁଁ ଫ୍ରମ୍ ଦ ଭେରି ବିଗିନିଂ ଆଇ ଅଲରେଡି ଏକ୍ସପ୍ଲେନ୍ ଦାଟ୍ ମାନେ ଗୋଟେ ଡିଜିଜ୍ ପାଇଁ କେବେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଗୋଟେ ପଜିଟିଭ୍ ଅର୍ଗାନିଜମ୍ ଇଜ୍ ନଟ୍ ରେସ୍ପନ୍ସିବଲ୍ ମିନ୍ସ ଗୋଟେ ଏଟିଓଲୋଜି କୌଣସି ଡିଜିଜ୍ ଏମିତି ନାହିଁ ଯୋଉଥିପାଇଁ କି ଗୋଟେ ଏଟିଓଲୋଜି ହେଉଛି ରେସ୍ପନ୍ସିବଲ୍ ଏଟିଓଲୋଜି ଇଜ୍ ଦ କଜ୍ ଅଫ୍ ଦ ଡିଜିଜ୍ ଗୋଟେ ରୋଗ ପାଇଁ ଗୋଟେ କାରଣ ସଫିସିଏଣ୍ଟ ନୁହଁ ଯେମିତିକି ଓବେସିଟି ବି ଗୋଟେ ଫ୍ୟାକ୍ଟର ଓବେସିଟି ପାଇଁ ମଧ୍ୟ ଡାଇବେଟିସ୍ ହେଇପାରେ ଜିଓଗ୍ରାଫିକାଲ ରିଜନ୍ କେତେଟା ଜାଗାରେ ମାନେ କୋଉ ଏରିଆରେ କୋଉ ଲୋକ ବିଲଙ୍ଗସ୍ କରନ୍ତି ମନେକର ଯୋଉମାନେ ବହୁତ ଯେମିତି ମୁଁ HIG LIG କଥା କହୁଥିଲି ସେଇଥିରେ ଯୋଉମାନେ LIG ଗ୍ରୁପରେ ରୁହନ୍ତି ସେମାନେ ଡେଲି ତାଙ୍କର ଭାତ ରୁଟି ପାଇଁ ସେମାନେ ବାହାରକୁ ଗଲେ they will depend upon the what ବ୍ରେଡ୍ ଆଣ୍ଡ ବଟର ପାଇଁ ସେମାନେ ନିହାତି ରୂପେ ଗୋଟେ କିଛି ଫିଜିକାଲ ଆକ୍ଟିଭିଟି କଲେ ତ ଯଦି ମନେକର ଗୋଟେ ଥର ସେମାନେ ଲଞ୍ଚରେ ହଉ ବ୍ରେକଫାଷ୍ଟ ଡିନର ଯାହା ବି ଖାଦ୍ୟ କନଜ୍ୟୁମ୍ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ଏକର୍ଡିଂଲି ଦେ ୱିଲ୍ ଏକ୍ସପେଣ୍ଡିଚର ଦ ଏନର୍ଜି ଅଲସୋ ବୁଝିଲା ନା ନାଇଁ ବଟ୍ ସବୁ କ୍ଷେତ୍ରରେ ଏମିତି ନୁହେଁ ଯେ ଓବେସିଟି ହଉ କିମ୍ବା ଜିଓଗ୍ରାଫିକାଲ ରିଜନ୍ ହଉ କିମ୍ବା ଗୋଟେ ଯେମିତି ଆପଣ କହିବେ ଯେ ମ୍ୟାଡାମ ସେ ତ ମୁଁ ଦେଖିଛି ଆମ ଶ୍ୱଶୁର କି ଇଏ ଅମକ ସମକ ଥିଲେ ଯୋଉମାନେ କି 50 ବର୍ଷ ଧରି ପାନ ଖାଉଥିଲେ ସେମାନଙ୍କୁ କ୍ୟାନ୍ସର ହଉନଥିଲା କିନ୍ତୁ ଇଏ ଜଣେ ଏବେ ବି ପାନ ଖାଉ ଖାଉ କେମିତି କ୍ୟାନ୍ସର ହେଇଗଲା ତ ଗୋଟେ ଡିଜିଜ୍ ପାଇଁ କେବେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଗୋଟେ ଫ୍ୟାକ୍ଟର ହିଁ ରେସ୍ପନ୍ସିବଲ୍ ନୁହଁ ହେରିଡିଟି ମଧ୍ୟ ଗୋଟେ ଫ୍ୟାକ୍ଟର ଡାଇବେଟିସ୍ର ମୁଖ୍ୟ ଫ୍ୟାକ୍ଟର ହେଉଛି ହେରିଡିଟି ଯଦି ପ୍ୟାରେଣ୍ଟସ୍ର ବି ଡାଇବେଟିକ୍ ଥିବ ନା ଯଦି both parents and father and mother both are affected by the diabetes na this very ତାଙ୍କ offspring ଯୋଉଟା ବି ହବ they are very prone towards the diabetic but in some cases if they will the offspring ଜନ୍ମ ହେଲା ପରେ ବି if they will maintain the proper lifestyle or and if they will take the proper right kind of food and they will be if that person is stress free then ଏତେ ଇଜିଲି ତାକୁ ସେଇ ଡାଇବେଟିକ୍ ବି ହବ ନାହିଁ ତ ଗୋଟେ ଜିନିଷ ମନେ ରଖିବାକୁ ପଡ଼ିବ ଯେ ଗୋଟେ ପଜିଟିଭ୍ ଅର୍ଗାନିଜମ୍ ହଉ କିମ୍ବା ଗୋଟେ ଫ୍ୟାକ୍ଟର ଗୋଟେ ରୋଗର କାରଣ ନୁହଁ ବହୁତ ସାରା ମଲ୍ଟି ଫ୍ୟାକ୍ଟର ଇଜ୍ ରେସ୍ପନ୍ସିବଲ୍ ଫର୍ କ୍ରିଏସନ୍ ଅଫ୍ ୱାନ୍ disorder, the one diseases. Understood?
ୟେସ୍ ମ୍ୟାମ୍।
ନା କିଛି ବୁଝିବାର ଅଛି?
ନାଇଁ ନାଇଁ
That is the distribution of the diseases. And third one is your frequency. What is frequency? Frequency of the disease means frequency of disease mainly occurrence or the measurement of the disease frequency. It involves quantification of the existence or the occurrence of the disease. କେତେ ଫ୍ରିକ୍ୱେନ୍ସିରେ ଯେମିତିକି ଆମର ଫିଭର ଯଦି ହେଉଛି କିମ୍ବା ଯାହା ବି ଏନି ଡିସଅର୍ଡର କେତେ ଫ୍ରିକ୍ୱେନ୍ସିଲି ଏଇଟା ରିପିଟେଡଲି ହେଉଛି ଦେଖିଥିବେ ଗୋଟେ ଗୋଟେ ଘରେ ଯୋଉ ପିଲାମାନଙ୍କ ଭାଇରାଲ ଫିଭର ହେଉଥାଏ ତ ରିପିଟେଡଲି ମାସକୁ ଥରେ ହଉ 15 ଦିନ କି ଥରେ ହଉ ଏତେ ଫ୍ରିକ୍ୱେଣ୍ଟଲି ସେ ଡିସଅର୍ଡରଟା ଦେଖା ଦେଉଛି ସେଇଟା ହେଉଛି frequency of the disease. In epidemiology, we will study about the determinant and the frequency and the distribution of the diseases among the population or among the group of the person. That is called as the epidemiology. बुझिएला?
ୟେସ୍ ମ୍ୟାମ୍।
And mainly the study of the distribution and the determinants of the health related states or the events in specified population and the application of this study to control the health problem. That is the epidemiology. And mainly this epidemiology is concerned with the frequency, and the type of illness or the type of disease, and the injuries in the group of people or the with the factors that influences the distribution also. And this epidemiology mainly it deals with the study of the cause and the distribution and the control of the disease in the population. Specifically, epidemiology means we have study about the mainly the study of the what is the cause, what is the etiology of the disease, and what is the distribution, how the disease will be distribution of the disease, and how to control that particular disease among the population. That these three things together it is called as the epidemiology. बुझी होची? And
Yes, ma'am.
mainly this epidemiology is based on the two fundamentals assumption. ଯେମିତି କି mainly human disease does not occur at random. କେତେଟା disease ଅଛି ଏଟା randomly ହୁଏ ନାହିଁ. It does not occur at randomly. And mainly that human disease has the causal and the preventive factor that can be identified through the systemic investigation of the different population. Okay, that can be identified through the systemic investigation of different population or the subgroups of the individuals within a population in different places or at different times. Okay, human disease, human जो जो प्रकार disorder होना कहेंगे has the causal and the preventive factors. ସବୁ disease ର ଗୋଟେ cause ଥାଏ and the prevention ମଧ୍ୟ ଥାଏ, and that can be identified through the systemic investigation. ଆମେ ଯଦି properly investigate କରିବା what is the cause of that disease, and after occurring of that disease how we will prevent that disease. Okay, once ଗୋଟେ disorder ଯଦି ହେଇଗଲା, after that first we will find out the cause of the disease, root cause of the disease, and the what is the etiology of the disease. After we go through the etiology of the disease, now then we will find out the prevention of that disorder, prevention of that disease. That is your epidemiology. Main two fundamental assumption is these 2 points is the main fundamental assumption. ଯେପରି ଦେଖିବେ ଏବେ ଯେତେବେଳେ କୋଭିଡ ଆମର ହେଲା, କୋଭିଡ ତ ୱାନ୍ସ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଷ୍ଟାର୍ଟ ହେଲା, ପ୍ରଥମେ ଆମେ ଜାଣିବା ପାଇଁ ଚେଷ୍ଟା କଲେ what is the etiology of that covid, covid ହବାର କାରଣ କ'ଣ, ଫାର୍ଷ୍ଟ ଆମେ ସେ କାରଣକୁ ଗଲେ, yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
କାରଣକୁ ଖୋଜିଲା ପରେ ହିଁ ଆମେ କ'ଣ କଲେ, ଏଇ ସବୁ ଜିନିଷ ଯେହେତୁ ଏଟା ଗୋଟେ ଆମର କଣ୍ଟାକ୍ଟରେ ହଉ କିମ୍ବା ଯୋଉ mode of transmission means that disease can be transmitted from one person to another person by the different method of transmission is there. तो को मेथड रे हमर एटा गोटे पर्सन टू आउट पर्सन को ट्रांसमिट करछे, ताकू देखिले आफ्टर दैट वी विल चूज द how we will prevent that diseases. For the prevention of that covid there adopt so many methods like the ଆମେ कौन कले प्रथमे वैक्सीनेशन पुणी बाहर कले, ठीक ना नहीं, इवन से वैक्सीनेशन पाए ही आम एमती नुह जे कोविड जहाँ पॉजिटिवली अफेक्टेड है ताकू ही से वैक्सीन दिया हला, सी तो वैक्सीन नेला फॉर द रिकवरी फ्रॉम दैट डिजीजेस. एनदर पर्सन जो मन को डिसऑर्डर भी हे नथिला भी प्रिवेंशन करिवा पाए बोली डिजीज को से बैक्टीरिया से जो वायरस को प्रिवेंट करिया पाए बोली ता पूर्व आम कौन कलु तार गोटे प्रिवेंटिव प्रिकॉशन मेथड आम नेलु जेमते कि कोविड रो डोजेस गुडा को आम नेलु. बुझिएला किछि?
Yes, ma'am.
Mainly the preventive factors that can be identified that can be identified through the systemic investigation of different population or the subgroups of the individuals within a population in different places or at different times also. And health and disease both are correlate with each other. In health, if you will consider about the health and the disorder, now mainly this can be study mainly the disability, morbidity and mortality. I already discussed about what is morbidity, what is mortality and what is disability. Mortality means what? Death. Mortality means death rate. Measurement of the death rate is the mortality. What is morbidity? Morbidity means what? Mortality refers to mainly the death. that occur in a population or the group of population. That is the death rate is your mortality. Morbidity is your illness. Means designates as the illness. That is the morbidity. And disability is the what? The state of being disabled. That may be mentally disabled person. That may be physical disabled person. Understood? What is mortality? What is morbidity? And what is disabled? Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
And in the mainly epidemiology is the mainly study of the cause and nature, control and determinants of the frequency and the distribution of the disease, disability and death in the human population. Okay, in the epidemiology now we study of the nature, cause, control, determinants of the frequency and the distribution of the disease, disability and death in the human population. That is the what? Epidemiology. In the epidemiology, the triangle of epidemiology means mainly the causative factor is there. And the environment, if you will consider about the environment, na, in the environment, the behavior, the culture, physiological factors is also there, and ecological elements is also responsible. Groups or the population are their characteristic. Groups and the population. The causative factor, mainly the causative factor implies the needs to identify the multiple causes or the multiple etiological factors of the disease, disability, injury, and the death. And in epidemiological, there are so many different types of multiple cause is responsible for the creation of any kind of disorder, yeah, disease in the mainly in the field of the nutritional epidemiology has developed specifically from the nutritional epidemiology means what do you mean by nutritional epidemiology? It's a very simple question mo pacharchi. So nutritional epidemiology means what do you mean by nutritional epidemiology? Yes.
ନ୍ୟୁଟ୍ରିସନ ଅଭାବରୁ ଯୋଉଟା ଡିଜିଜ ହେରିକା ହୁଏ ସେଥିପାଇଁ।
यस एते सारा बुझिलो जानि माने बुझी सारे तो माने बहुत सारा डिजीज रो मेन कथा एपिडेमियोलॉजी माने हमें जानिलु जे डिजीज रो कोन कॉज कोन नेचर कोन जदि डिजीज होची हमें ताको केमते कंट्रोल करबा एंड द डिटरमिनेंट्स ऑफ द फ्रीक्वेंसी केते फ्रीक्वेंसी डिजीज अटैक करूची एंड द डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन ऑफ द डिजीज एंड द डिजाबिलिटी देखिथिबो बेले बेले तो माने कर कैंसर हे जाउची कैंसर हो गला पर हमें कौन इधर केमोथेरापी और रेडिएशन थेरापी सब तो मैनेजमेंट करूछन टू प्रिवेंट द डिसऑर्डर आफ्टर द प्रिवेंशन ऑफ दैट डिजीज आई मीन कैंसर भलो होचंती बट सो मेनी डिजाबिलिटी इज देयर काहर मुहटा पूरा माने कर डेंटल कार्सिनोमा हेची देखिबो दांत पाखरे मुहटा पूरा माने विकृति हे जाइतिबो देखछ ना कितरा केस रे सिंपल जिनस जेमती कि जदि मन कर ब्रेस्ट कार्सिनोमा हला तो ब्रेस्ट कार्सिनोमा रे कोन करा होची ब्रेस्ट को पूरा कटा ही जाउची तो सेटा गोटे माने सेटा भी गोटे प्रकार माने हमें जदि आउटवर्ड हमें देखि पारि हमें जानि परिबा जे जण को जदि ब्रेस्ट नाही आ गोटे ब्रेस्ट ब्रेस्ट जदि अछि हम जानि परछि तार नियत रूप डेफिनेटली ब्रेस्ट कार्सिनोमा हेतिबो तो एठी कहिबा कथा epidemiology is the study of the nature, the cause, the control, the determinants of the frequency and the distribution of the disease, disability and the death in the human population. That is the epidemiology. In the nutritional that epidemiology mainly it deals with the study of the relationship. Study of the relationship. It mainly between the nutrient and the dietary intake and the disease condition. Some of the disease the cause of that disease is mainly caused by due to the intake of excess calorie or excess intake of that nutrient rich food that may also causes the disease and due to the deficiency of some nutritional requirement that also causes the different type of disorder. That means in hyper or hypo vitamins is also causes the different types of disorder. That is the nutritional epidemiology. and mainly the dietary fat intake and the breast cancer incidence. If we will regular basis, if we will be consume the high saturated fatty acids or the high processed food or high junk food or high chemical based food or high processed food, then there may be the chance of what breast carcinoma. ओके दैट्स वे जदि आम इनटेक जदि आमर अधिक हो जाउची जोटार जतिकी रिक्वायरमेंट रोची एंड अनहाइजीनिक फूड हो किंबा आमर हाई सैचुरेटेड फैटी एसिड हो हाई प्रोसेस्ड फूड हो हाई जंक फूड हो किंबा जोड़ा सॉफ्ट ड्रिंक्स हो कोल्ड ड्रिंक्स हो किंबा अल्कोहलिक बेवरेज हो ए सब जिंस जदि एक्सेस एक्सेस जाउची इट मे कॉजेस द व्हाट कार्सिनोमा बा कैंसर मुख्य कारण होची सेटा मध्य and एटा को हमें कहबा nutritional epidemiology, and it is the mainly important to understand the that the effect of dietary intake and nutritional status on the health are complex. Multiple nutrients work together in the body, and with the differing impact of the different system and under the differing environmental condition also. And the effect of the dietary intake may be modified or confounded by other exposure, mainly it including the physical activity. ଯେତିକି ବି ଆମେ input ନଉଛନ୍ତି intake କରୁଛନ୍ତି ସେ ଅନୁସାରେ ଆମର physical activity ମଧ୍ୟ ନିହାତି ରୂପେ ଭଲ ରହିବା ଦରକାର, and smoking and alcohol consumption I already discussed about that, and mainly the specific effect requires in the understanding of the complex interaction among the exposure, that nutritional epidemiology deals with the mainly nutritional epidemiology deals with the intake and the how much you are taking the fast food or junk food or any kind of excessive vitamins or any kind of saturated fatty acid, and it causes the different types of disorder. That is the nutritionally epidemiology. Then what is the main purpose or the goals and the aims of the epidemiology? Mainly that in the health and nutrition status of the population means to enumerate the cases of the case of the diseases to obtain the relative frequency of the diseases and within the subgroups to discover important trends in occurrence of the disease. And the purpose of the epidemiology is mainly to explain the etiology. Okay, first find out the cause. The main purpose of this epidemiology is to find out the cause of the diseases and what are the causative factors or the mode of transmission of the diseases. This is the what the main purpose of the epidemiology. And how to control the disease, how to prevent occurrence of the new cases. jaha to hei jaichi jemti covid jetiki to hella, but how to control the cases of the covid, how to prevent that transmission of that covid virus from one person to another person, and mainly to prevent the occurrence of the new cases, to eradicate the existing cases and to prolong the lives of those with the disease. जो मानकर भी already affected ना, तो सेमानक तो positive आसी जाइए तो सेमानक लाइफ स्पान को हमें केमती बढ़े पारिबा, तो सेटा होची हमर epidemiology रो main purpose. And to predict the occurrence, of the diseases, that means to estimate the actual number of cases that will develop, and as well as to identify the distribution within the population, distribution of the diseases. And this information is very crucial to planning the intervention and the allocation of the resources. Okay, and what is the aim of the epidemiology? These all are the purpose of the epidemiology. Now I will discuss about the aim of the epidemiology. Mainly the aim of the epidemiology is the it mainly to determine the control methods. Okay, how to control the disease, how to prevent the diseases. This is the what control methods, and mainly determine the preventive measures. Okay, control means ता सहित भी हमर prevention केमिति हमें prevent जे कौन से disorder हो ना काहे ताको हमें केमिति prevent करिबा, and mainly define and determine the contributing factor man, which is the what are the positive factor, uh, that positive factor mainly responsible for the diseases, ସେଗୁଡାକୁ ଆମେ କଣ କରିବା find out କରିବା, and define the mode of transmission. It's very important how the disease is transmitted from one person to another person, and how we have to control. Different method is there. By applying the different types of method, we can control the mode of transmission. Mode of transmission of one disease, one or from one organism, from one person to another person, and determine the primary agent or the ascertain causative factors also, and understand the cause of the diseases and disorder and the condition of the patient also. Define the mode of transmission and define and determine the contributing factor. Mainly determine the preventive measures and provide the administrative and the planning data. This is all about your the aim of the epidemiology. आम epidemiology रो main aim होची प्रथम आम देखा तर प्राइमरी एजेंट कौन कोथि कोटा होची द प्राइमरी कॉजेटिव फैक्टर जोटा कि डिजीज रो मुख्य कॉज कारण एंड मेनली आम से कजटा देखा तार डिजर्डर कौन जदि से कज लगे डिजीज भी हो गला ता फल कौन कौन डिजर्डर होची एंड आफ्टर अफेक्टेड ऑफ दैट काइंड ऑफ डिजर्डर पेशेंट कंडीशन को पर्यंत लीड करूची and determine the characteristics of the agent and the causative factor, and after affected of that disease how it will be transmitted from one person to another person. That means the mode of transmission and the geographic disease pattern also. Identify and explain the geographic disease pattern. Determine, describe and reports the natural course of the diseases, disability and injury and finally death. And determine the preventive measure. जदि भी गोटे डिसऑर्डर हो जाउछि बा डिजीज होउछि तो हाउ विल टेक द प्रिवेंटिव मेजर, केमिति आमे से डिजीज को आमे प्रिवेंशन करि परिबा. दिस इज ऑल अबाउट योर एम ऑफ द एपिडेमियोलॉजी. क्वेश्चन बेले बेले एमिति आसी थाय मधो what do I mean by epidemiology and what is the main goals of the epidemiology, what is the purpose of the epidemiology and what is the main aim of the epidemiology. ओके राजलक्ष्मी मैम बुझी होची?
यस मैम.
ना किछि असुविधा होची?
नहीं बुझी होची.
माने रहिला एम कोन, व्हाट इज एपिडेमियोलॉजी एंड व्हाट इज इट्स पर्पस, बुझी पाले सब जिंस?
बुझी होची.
हां, न्यूट्रिशनल एपिडेमियोलॉजी कोन बुझी हला?
यस मैम.
ओके. Now I will discuss about the use of the epidemiology. The uses of the epidemiology. Mainly the study, the history of the health of the population. मु कहिछि एपिडेमियोलॉजी रे हम कोन करूछंती, डिजीज रो कॉज देखुछंती, डिजीज को केमते कंट्रोल करबे देखुछंती, डिजीज रो एटियोलॉजिकल फैक्टर्स देखुछंती एंड हाउ विल प्रिवेंट द डिजीज. ए सब जगह हम देखुछंती कोथरे एपिडेमियोलॉजी रे. And what is the uses of the epidemiology? The main uses of this epidemiology is the study the history of the health of the population and the study the working of the health services. That means mainly the research transfers knowledge of the changing community health and the expectation in terms of the needs for service and the measures how these are made. Mainly the success of the service delivered in the reaching state norms, the effect of the community health and the needs have to be appraised in relation to the resources. Such knowledge may be applied in the action research, pioneering better services and is drawing up plans for the future. And the main use of the epidemiology is to estimate from the group's experience what are the individual risks on average of the diseases, accident and the defect and the chance of avoiding them. These are to estimate from the group experience. From the what are the individual risk factor on the average of the diseases and accident and the defect and the chances of avoiding them, to identify the syndromes, to identify the syndrome by describing the distribution and association of the clinical phenomenon in the population. Okay, to identify the syndrome, to complete the clinical pictures of chronic diseases, mainly to complete the clinical pictures of the chronic diseases, and to search for the cause of the health and the diseases. Cause and health of the disease means what? What is the cause of health and the disease by computing the experience of groups mainly defined by their composition, inheritance and experience, the behavior and the environment. The confirm particular cause of the chronic diseases and the patterns of multiple causes. Not only a single etiological factor is responsible for the creation of one kind of disorder. ଯେତେବେଳେ from the very beginning I already explained that ଗୋଟେ disorder ପାଇଁ କେବେ ବି ଗୋଟେ ହିଁ causative factor ବା ଗୋଟେ etiological factor is not responsible. So many associated factor is responsible for the creation of any kind of disorder. ଗୋଟେ causative organism ବା ଗୋଟେ causative etiological factor ଦାୟୀ ନୁହଁ. ଏକ disease ହେଇପାରେ, chronic ହେଇପାରେ, fatal ହେଇପାରେ. ତ ଏ ସବୁ ପାଇଁ ଆସୋସିଏଟେଡ୍ ଫ୍ୟାକ୍ଟର ବହୁତ ସାରା କାରଣ ହେଇପାରେ ଗୋଟେ ରୋଗର, ଏମିତି ନୁହଁ ଯେ ଗୋଟେ କଜ୍ ହିଁ ଗୋଟେ ରୋଗ ପାଇଁ ଦାୟୀ। ବୁଝିହେଲା? ବୁଝି ହଉଛି ନା ମୁଁ ଯାହା କହୁଛି?
Yes, ma'am.
ମିତାଲି ମଧୁସ୍ମିତା କର।
ଆଜ୍ଞା।
ତମେ ଆଜି ଫାର୍ଷ୍ଟ କ୍ଲାସ୍ ବୋଧେ ମୁଁ ଦେଖୁଛି।
ନାଇଁ ମ୍ୟାଡାମ ମୁଁ ଆଉ ଥରେ କରିଥିଲି, କିନ୍ତୁ ଆଜି ବି ମୁଁ ଫାର୍ଷ୍ଟରୁ ଜଏନ୍ କରୁଥିଲି, ମୋର ଟିକେ ନେଟୱାର୍କ ଇସ୍ୟୁ ଥିଲା, ହେଇପାରିଲାନି, ଏବେ ଜଏନ୍ କରିଛି।
ଆପଣ ପ୍ରାକ୍ଟିକାଲ କ୍ଲାସରେ ଥିଲେ କି? ଲାଷ୍ଟ ଥର ଯୋଉ ପ୍ରାକ୍ଟିକାଲ ହେଇଥିଲା?
ନାଇଁ ମ୍ୟାଡାମ ଆପଣଙ୍କର ଯୋଉ ପ୍ରିଭିୟସ୍ କ୍ଲାସଟାରେ ବି ଥିଲି।
ଆଚ୍ଛା, ମାନେ ଥିଓରି କ୍ଲାସ୍ କଥା କହୁଛନ୍ତି?
ଆଜ୍ଞା ଆଜ୍ଞା।
ଆଚ୍ଛା, କୋଉ କ୍ଲାସ୍ ଆପଣଙ୍କର ଯୋଉ ମୁଁ କଣ ପଢଉଥିଲି ଥେରାପିଟିକ୍ ନ୍ୟୁଟ୍ରିସନ?
MFN-1 ର ଯୋଉ କ୍ଲାସ ଗୁଡାକ ଥିଲା ସେଥିରେ ବି ଥିଲି, ଆଉ
ଆନାଟୋମି ଆଣ୍ଡ ଫିଜିଓଲୋଜି।
ଆଜ୍ଞା।
କ୍ଲାସ୍ କାହିଁକି କରୁନାହାନ୍ତି ମ୍ୟାଡାମ ସବୁବେଳେ?
ମ୍ୟାଡାମ ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲି ଅଫିସରେ ରହିଯାଉଛି, ବେଳେ ବେଳେ ହେଇପାରୁନି, ଯେତେବେଳେ ମାନେ ପସିବଲ ହଉଛି ସେତେବେଳେ ଜଏନ୍ କରିବାକୁ ଚେଷ୍ଟା କରୁଛୁ, କେତେବେଳେ ନେଟୱାର୍କ ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ ବି ରହୁଛି, ଏମିତି।
କଣ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ଆପଣ?
ମ୍ୟାଡାମ ମୁଁ ଏଇଠି ଆମର ଯୋଉ ନାଲକୋ ଛକରେ ଇନଷ୍ଟିଚ୍ୟୁଟ ଅଫ ଲାଇଫ ସାଇନ୍ସ ଅଛି, ସେଇଠି ଜବ୍ କରେ, ଲାବୋରେଟୋରୀ ଆସିଷ୍ଟାଣ୍ଟ।
ଆଚ୍ଛା, ସେଇଥିପାଇଁ ପ୍ରାକ୍ଟିକାଲ କ୍ଲାସ୍ କଲେନି କି?
ପ୍ରାକ୍ଟିକାଲ ମ୍ୟାଡାମ କେବେ ହେଇଥିଲା ମତେ ଜଣା ନାହିଁ, ମାନେ କେବେ ହେଇଥିଲା।
ଏଇ ତ ଲାଷ୍ଟ ସଣ୍ଡେ ବୋଧେ ହେଇନି, ତା ପ୍ରିଭିୟସ୍ ସଣ୍ଡେ ହେଇଥିଲା।
ସବୁ ସଣ୍ଡେରେ
ହଁ ସଣ୍ଡେ ବୋଧେ ପ୍ରାକ୍ଟିକାଲ ସରିଯିବ, ବୋଧେ ସରିଯାଇଥିବ ବୋଧେ, ଏବେ ତ ନଥିବ, ସିଲାବସ୍ କମ୍ପ୍ଲିଟ୍ ହେଇଗଲା ବୋଧେ। जो भी जहाँ तो ऑफलाइन करंतु या न करंतु बहुत कम क्लासेस हुई, एटलीस्ट क्लास को अटेंड करने ट्राई करंतु। सेकंड ईयर में सेकंड ईयर में
नहीं नहीं मैडम
फर्स्ट ईयर।
फर्स्ट ईयर
आज्ञा जुलाई 2023 रो जो एडमिशन हेतु ठीक अछि।
ओके। श्रीदत्त्री घोष।
Yes, ma'am.
You are from where?
Ma'am, from Kotak.
ओके। तमे भी क्लास तो करिनो बोधे केबे?
मैम ये फिजियोलॉजी क्लास କରିଥିଲି, ତାପରେ ମୋର ଯୋଉ पेपर्स बाकी पेपर्स गुडा क्लियर ଥିଲା, ଏଇ पेपर टा ମୋର बाकी रह जाईची, सेट पे ए पेपर टा जॉइन करछि।
ओहो तमे कहबा कथा आउ जो पेपर गुडा तमरो क्लियर हे जाइतला तो
आज्ञा
से
मैम।
पेपर क्लास ऑफ न करिकि जोटा तमरो माने तमे कहबा कथा जो पेपर तमरो क्लियर हेछि सेउडा को तमे क्लास कौन पेपर क्लियर कर
आज्ञा मैम बाकी अच्छे नहीं सही।
कौन क्लियर कर कौन
आज्ञा।
करिछ क्लियर Okay, I will continue. Mainly to
मैम
confirm
MFN 2
the
मैम MFN 1 2 3 5।
okay. To search for the cause of the health and the diseases by computing the experience of the group defined by their composition, inheritance, and the experience, their behavior, and the environment. Mainly to confirm the particular cause of the chronic diseases and the patterns of the multiple causes. Not only a single causative etiological factor is responsible for the creation of any kind of disease or the disorder. That may be fatal disorder, that may be acute disorder. Multiple etiological factor is responsible for the creation of one kind of disorder. That's why describing the modes of operation singly or togetherly and to assess their importance in terms of the relative risks of those exposed. This is all about your the goals, aim, and the purpose of the epidemiology. And next one is your development in the modern epidemiology, mainly in John's Grain is the father of epidemiology. You remember this name? John's Grain is the fathers of the modern epidemiology. While studying about the epidemiology, first we will consider about the first the major development was the design of the studies and the techniques for the collecting of the data and analyzing the data in order the evaluate the risk factor for the chronic disease. From the epidemiology तो मैं first discussion आरंभ करते हैं तो प्रथम रो कह दीजिए प्रथमे हमें among the population or among the group of the people रो हमें data collect करिबा the techniques for the collecting the data and analyzing the data. After collection of the data we have to analyze that data and in order to evaluate the risk factor, which is the risk factor of the diseases for the chronic diseases. And one such strategy to address the problem of the long latency periods was to get together a group of individuals and with a particular disease and the comparable groups of the persons without it. Mainly information about the previous medical history. First, we will ask about the what is the previous history about the health habits was collected. And these type of approaches is called as the case control study. Okay. First, you have to collect the data and ask about the history and the habits. What type of habits they are having? You have to ask. That is, this is all about your case control study and allow the investigator to look back in times mainly to assess quickly. First, you have to effect to exposure to a given factors without having to wait for the 10 to 20 years for the disease to develop. Mainly the association between the cigarette smoking and the lungs carcinoma was shown through a classic study by Doll and Hills in 1950. Mainly this approach because of the especially relevant because morbidity and the mortality due to the infectious diseases. Famines and the pestilence were decreasing in the countries of the developed world, like the USA. The association between the intake of cigarette and the cause of the lungs carcinoma. It's very common and mainly there has been emergence for the chronic disorder which characteristically have latent periods of 10 to 12 years and they are now major cause of the mortality. and the change in the mortality pattern has had for the reaching the implication. That means there was still a need for obtaining accurate and the precise information about the period of the exposure and what is the risk factor of the disease or the causative agent or causative organism prior to the occurrence of the an event. This problem was solved by the using the cohort study. What do you mean by cohort study? Cohort study is nothing. Cohort study means I mean prathame first first you have to obtaining accurate and precise information about the period of exposure. मानेकर tuberculosis ହେଇଛି ତ ପ୍ରଥମେ ଆମେ ଜାଣିବା ଦରକାର ଯେ କେତେ ଦିନ ହେଲାଣି ମାନେकर lungs ରେ ରହିଛି tuberculosis ତ ଆମେ ପଚାରିବା କେତେ ଦିନ ହେଲାଣି କାଶ ହଉଛି କେତେ ଦିନ ହେଲା କାଶରେ କଫ ପଡୁଛି କେତେ ଦିନ ହେଲା ମାଇଲ୍ଡ ଫିଭର ବଡିରେ ରହୁଛି କେତେ ଦିନ ହେଲା ୱେଟ୍ ଲସ୍ ହଉଛି ଏ ସବୁ ଆସୋସିଏଟେଡ୍ सिम्पटम्स जोटा कि जो डिजर्डर जेमती लंग्स रो मानेकर ट्यूबरकुलोसिस अछि तो आमे ताको हिस्ट्री नेला बळकु एत्ती जाक जिंस को आमे ताको पचारि कि बुझी रखिबा निहात दरकार एंड आल्सो risk factor or the causative agent prior to the occurrence of an event. These problem were solved by the what we study in this. These all are solved by the cohort study. In cohort study now we will collecting the data by different methods and mainly the effect of oral antibiotic medication, how the oral antibiotic medication anti-diabetic medication it will controls the diabetes. तो हमको सही समय मध्ये पचारिया पेशेंट हिस्ट्री नेला को पचारिया पड़िबो केते वर्ष होला आपनकर डायबिटिक अछि आपनकर पेरेंट्स रो डायबिटिक अछि कि नहीं आपनकर जदि भी पेरेंट्स रो अछि तो बोथ आर अफेक्टेड बाय द डायबिटीज और नॉट ये सिंगल पेरेंट्स रो अछि एंड सेटा आपन को ट्रांसमिट करछि आपन को लाइफस्टाइल कोन एंड सिमिलरली साकारिन आयोनाइजिक रेडिएशन एंड ल्यूकेमिया एटा गोटे कोहोर्ट स्टडी रे कोन माने कर ल्यूकेमिया हेछि माने ब्लड कार्सिनोमा हेछि ब्लड रे कैंसर हेछि तो साकारिन आयोनाइजिंग दैट रेडिएशन हमरो दिया जिवो जदि आम से को ए रेडिएशन ऊपर दउछन तो केते परिमाण रे हमर डिजर्डर बा डिजीज हमर कम होछि आकु गोटे स्टडी करबा आकु गोटे स्टैटिस्टिकल डाटा नहीं कि हमें इतना पेशेंट को ए प्रकार ट्रीटमेंट देले आरो पेशेंट को ए उडा देले नाही तो ए जो डाटा नहीं कि हमें देखिबा दैट इज योर कोहॉर्ट स्टडी एंड कॉफी ड्रिंकिंग एंड पैंक्रियाटिक कैंसर जदि हमें स्टडी करबा जदि जो माने पैंक्रियाटिक कार्सिनोमा रे अफेक्टेड होचंती देखिबो मैक्सिमम लोक माने से माने कैफाइन रो एडिक्टेड थांती तो से अनुसार हमें केतरा डाटा नबा जे माने रेगुलर बेसिस रे कैफाइन होचंती एंड दे आर वेरी से माने को भितरे होय तो अधिका माने चांसेस थाई पे से माने कर पैंक्रियास रे कैंसर हबार आ जोटा कि बहुत कम थिबो जे माने कि नौ नथिबे कोन नथिबे कैफाइन इनटेक जो माने कर बहुत कम थिबो तो ए प्रकार स्टडी को हम कोहोर्ट स्टडी बोली कहिबा एंड बीटा कैरोटीन एंड कैंसर जदि हमें बीटा कैरोटीन रिच फूड जदि हमें ज्यादा नौजन ताले रेट ऑफ कार्सिनोमा विल बी डिक्रीजेस yes or no because it contains the richest sources of antioxidant is there flavonoids is there due to that only it reduces the maturation of the carcinoma cells cancer cell को degeneration से करे दबो regeneration हबा को दबो नाही तो सेटा को मध्ये हमें गोटे कोहोर्ट स्टडी बोली हमें कहिबा बुझी हला
आगे
now I will discuss about the descriptive variables for the health of the community variables what is variables ए जो यूनिट आमे माने पढ़ी माने टिके आपण माइंड दे कि मन दे कि टिके सुनिया पे पड़ो रिसर्च पेपर ता आपण को सब बेले ही दरकार एबो बोली नाही जदि आपण या परे भी तो मास्टर डिग्री हे गला मास्टर डिग्री कंप्लीट करला परे भी जो माने एथरे करियर बनिया पे चाहउछन जदि रिसर्च करिया पे जाउछन या एथरे पीएचडी करिया पे चाहउछन तो निहाती रूपे आपण को ए रिसर्च मेथोडोलॉजी आपण जदि जानि नाहंती आपण किछि करि परिबे नाही जदि आपणकर मल्टीपल क्वालिफिकेशन अच्छी जदि ए सब्जेक्ट को चाहिए को सब्जेक्ट भी आपण पीएचडी करंतु ना कहीं जदि आपण न्यूट्रिशनल साइंस आपण को इच्छा भी होनी अदर को साइंस रे आपण मास्टर्स अच्छी तो सही साइंस रे भी आपण पीएचडी करंतु चाहो जो थे पोस्ट माने पीएचडी करूछंती ना रिसर्च मेथोडोलॉजी होची आपणकर बहुत टॉप सब्जेक्ट एंड एटा उठी इंपोर्टेंट सब्जेक्ट सिमिलरली जदि आपण नेट दोचंती नेट क्वालिफाई करिया पे चाहउचंती तो से आपंकर ए रिसर्च स्टैटिस्टिक्स एंड रिसर्च मेथोडोलॉजी रो क्वेश्चन आसीबो एते बहुत सारा जेंति आमे फिजियोलॉजी पढुतिले आपण मन देखिथिबे बहुत सारा न्यू न्यू टर्म आपण सिखुतिले मेडिकल रिलेटेड टर्म ये सब नो
यस
यस मैम
हाँ कारण से आपन को सही तो माने पेट काटुची कहले आपण स्टोमक ही जानिथिले किंतु जेतलो मेडिकल साइंस जेतलो आपण ए साइंस को आसिले न्यूट्रिशनल साइंस को पसले तो आपण देखिबे निहात रूपे आपनकर बहुत सारा बीइंग ए मेडिकल प्रोफेशन भली आपनकर बहुत सारा जिनस टर्मिनोलॉजी रे भी चेंज हे गला आ आपण स्टोमक कहबिनी पेट कहबिनी आपण कहबे जे गैस्ट्रिक पेन होउची गैस्ट्राइटिस हे जाईची आपण देखिथिबे जो माने नॉर्मल लोक से माने मोर गैस्ट्रिक हे गला बोली कहंती गैस्ट्रिक हे गला माने कोन गैस्ट्रिक माने अदर नेम ऑफ द स्टोमक द मेडिकल टर्म ऑफ द स्टोमक इज ए गैस्ट्रिक तो गैस्ट्रिक हे गला माने कोन पेट हे गला बिल्कुल नुह मते गैस्ट्राइटिस हे जाईची आईटीआईएस गैस्ट्राइटिस मींस मते इन्फ्लेमेशन हेची मो स्टोमक रे बा गैस्ट्रिक रे बुझियला
आज्ञा
तो आमे जो रिसर्च मेथोडोलॉजी आपण माने जेते जण भी क्लास रे अछंती या आपण करो कोठी फ्रेंड सर्कल जे भी अछंती ना जो माने इंटरेस्टेड जो माने इंटरेस्ट नहन ता कुछ कहबे भी दरकार नै बट आपण माने जति आगो को बढ़िबा पई चाहउचंती एई साइंस को करियर करी कि हो किबा अदर किछि रिसर्च बेस किछि करिया पई चाहउचंती स्पेसिफिकली पीएचडी करिया पई चाहउचंती नेट क्वालिफाई करउचंती करिया पई चाहउचंती एई पेपर इज वेरी इंपोर्टेंट एंड एइथरे भी आपनकर मेडिकल टर्मिनोलॉजी जेंति फिजियोलॉजी पैथोलॉजी रे आपण जेंति पढुतिले सिमिलरली एइथरे मध्ये आपनकर बहुत सारा टर्मिनोलॉजी आसीबो टर्म गुडा आसी जोडा कि वेरी नुआ नुआ एंड आपण को यू हैव टू रिमेंबर ऑल दिस टर्मिनोलॉजी अंडरस्टूड कोन कहि पाइले
यस
what is variable in nothing variable means it is the characteristic that leads to mainly vary from subject to subject or from unit to unit is called as the variable. Variable means what? It is the characteristic that tends to vary from subject to subject or from unit to unit. It is called as the variable. And mainly this variable it includes the demographic and the social variable. Demographic means area wise variable and social variable, health related outcome variable related to the community infrastructure. That variable that may be social variable, that may be community infrastructure variable, that may be what? Health related outcome variable, that may be social variable, that may be demographic variable. And what is that health related outcome variable? Health related outcome variable means the variable depicting the health related outcome may includes mainly the infant mortality rate. मैं इटा already पढ़ी छी आपण मानन को पढ़ी नि मो infant mortality rate पढ़ी नि मो आर सब्जेक्ट रे मु तो क्लास में पढ़ी छी कौन ऑल ऑफ यू रिमेन साइलेंट कौन पे यस और नो को ना
यस मैम पढ़ी
आपण तो बहुत जण क्लास ही कोन नथिबे कोन कहबे कोन तो सेटा होची आपनकर प्रॉब्लम बुझियला हो एनिया मन रखंतु जोटा हेल्थ रिलेटेड आउटकम वेरिएबल रे मेनली विल इन दिस द एग्जांपल ऑफ द हेल्थ रिलेटेड आउटकम वेरिएबल इज द टीनेजर्स प्रेगनेंसी रेट्स एंड बर्थ रेट alcoholism and the drugs abuse rates and mortality from the selected condition infant mortality rate homicide and the suicide rates. These all are the what? Health related outcome variables. And what is the variable related to the community infrastructure? Community infrastructure variable means the quality of the housing stock. Example of the this community infrastructure variable is availability of social and health services. Availability of the social and the health services gote सोशल स्टेबिलिटी जोटा कि रेसिडेंशियल mobility jota and the quality of housing stock and demographic and the social variables kona demographic and social variables it mainly includes the racial ethnic and the religious composition racial apan mane janichanti ethnic and the religious composition and in this demographic variables family structure it including the marital status and the numbers of single parents families and socio-economic status also age and the sex distribution the demographic and the social variable it mainly includes the age and the sex distribution okay this is all about your what that different types of variables that may be demographic social variables health related outcome variables and the variable related to the community infrastructure mainly ଆମେ ଯେତେ ପ୍ରକାର variables ଅଛି variables को we are divided into three types of variables one is the discrete and the continuous variable and the second one is your qualitative and the quantitative variables and the third one is the stochastic and the deterministic variable you remember these three variables one is the qualitative and the quantitative variables second one is the discrete and the continuous variable and the third one is your stochastic and the deterministic variable what is the qualitative and the quantitative variables mainly in the quantitative variables means the in quantitative variables it includes mainly the जोटा कि नॉर्मल जिनस जोटा ताको आ किछि वेरिएशन हे परिबो नाही दैट इज द क्वांटिटेटिव वेरिएबल्स कोटा वेरिएशन होबो नाही जेमति कि एटा समस्तन को पय समान यूनिवर्सल सेटा एक्सेप्टेड जेमति कि आपण माने देखिथिबे बेबी रो जितबे जन्म होची त बेबी रो बर्थ वेट इट्स नॉर्मल एटा 2.5 टू 3.5 भीतर ही आसीबो ताठु जदि अधिक होची ताले नॉर्मल बोली हम कहो इट्स नॉट द नॉर्मल तो एटा देखिबो जो 4.5 आसुची कि 8.5 आसुची जो मानकर टिके अधिक आसु एटा माने 100 टारो जदि हम केतेटा केस देखिबो ताले से मानकर सेमति आस्ते किंतु समस्तकर सेमति आसी न थाए ठीक ना भूल
ठीक
that is your quantitative variable ଯେତେବେଳେ ଗୋଟେ ଇନଫାଣ୍ଟ ଜନ୍ମ ହଉଛି ତାର ଯୋଉ ବଡି ୱେଟ୍ ଥାଉଛି 2.5 ଟୁ 3 କେଜି या 3.5 केजी ହଉଛି नॉर्मल and respiratory rate if you will think about the respiratory rate universal जदि हमें देखिबा 72 per minute होची एटा होची नॉर्मल सिमिलरली जदि हमें देखिबा ब्लड प्रेशर नॉर्मल होची 120/80 ता पर जदि अधिका भी होची या इफ इट इज more than 120/80 it is abnormal and it is called as the hypertension. It's not the normal. And ये जो normal value गुड़ाक एटा पूरा already सेतिकी fixed. It is called as the quantitative variables. आपको अगर change करी हुए नहीं, अब जो case रे भी change हुए variable टा change हुए, that is not the normal, that is the abnormal. It is called as the quantitative variables. बुझिएला मिताली?
ଆଜ୍ଞା
राजलक्ष्मी मैम बुझी पाउछन्ती?
Yes, ma'am.
ओके, एटा होची आपनकर quantitative variables. But in the qualitative variables, na qualitative variables means mainly that variables body temperature. Body temperature केतेबळे जदि माने कर हमर normal तो body temperature गोटे रहबे, जते fever हे गला ताले कोन होची temperature पे मे बी rises. जदि fever न होची other को कारण जदि body temperature reduce भी हे जाउची, birth weight it may be increases, it may be decreases, but the normal standard is सेतिके ही जोटा कि 2.5 to 3.5, 3 to 3.5 is the normal. And the height मध्ये गोटे standard थाए, and it is of course the common, but in some stages in the patient management they tends to be interpreted as the qualities, such as the it may be high, it may be low, or it may be pre-term or the post-term. देखिथिबो केतेबेले कोन हे आटु पे अधिक हे कि जन्म होइतांती किबा कम होइतांती किबा बेले बेले कोन होते डेलीवरी डेट. नॉर्मली डेलीवरी डेट होची 280 डेज गोटे माने मैटरनिटी जो पीरियड होची हमरो एएनसी पीरियड, एंटीनेटल चेकअप रे जो पीरियड प्रेगनेंसी पीरियड होची 280 डेज. बट इन सम केसेस it may be exceed, it may be decreases also. It is called as the what means high, normal or the low. देखिथिबे केजण मदर थिबे प्रेगनेंसी पीरियड 7-8 मंथ्स रे मते सेमानकर डेलीवरी हे जाउची, आ केजण को 9th मंथ से कि 15 दिन हे गेला परे मने होनी, जोथि सेमानकर सीएस मध्ये करिया पे प्रोसीजरल सेक्शन ऊपर से डिपेंड करूछन्ते. तो सेही सब केस को आमे कोन कहबा हाई, लो, मीडियम, ए तीनटा कैटेगरी हम ताको कैटेगराइज करिबा, एंड इट इज कॉल्ड एज द क्वालिटेटिव. दैट इज द क्वांटिटेटिव. जदि मु कहली जोटा नॉर्मल ताको वेरिएशन हबनी, बट ए उडा को होची क्वालिटेटिव वेरिएबल्स बा क्वालिटी वेरिएबल्स. जेंति कि जदि माने कर गोटे पेशेंट रो माल न्यूट्रिशन होची, माल न्यूट्रिशन ऑफ द चाइल्ड कैन बी मेनली क्लासिफाइड एज द इट मे बी व्हाट undernutrition, overnutrition, or the normal model. If the body temperature will be very high or very low or normal also. And this is the what qualitative variables. Okay, all of you understood what is quantitative variables and what is the qualitative variables?
yes
Yes, ma'am.
Sridatri, are you understood?
Yes, ma'am.
And the second one is your what continuous variable or the discrete variables. What is the discrete variable? What is the major difference between the continuous variable and the discrete variable? It's a very important question for the short notes or for 5 marks by mate question bahut asi thae mone rakhita. What is the discrete variables? Discrete variables means this type of variables that can taken only the finite, generally the small numbers of value is range is called as the discrete. 1 to 10 भितरे जोटा रहउथबो small numbers of variables, that is the discrete variables, and only those variables which can take as the small numbers of value, and that is less than 10, and are generally considered the discrete variables. A variable which can take an infinite number of value within a range is called as the continuous variable. देखिथिबे एतिकिरु एतिकी माने गोटे रेंज गोटे लंबा नंबर्स, that is called as the continuous variable. जदि variables टा within the 10 numbers भितर रहिला and fixed गोटे छोटो value आसला, this is called as the discrete variables. If that variables may be vary from गोटे रु आरंभ होबो and बहुत long पर्यंत चलेबो, that is called as the what continuous variables. Example of this continuous variable is your anthropometric measurements such as the weight ho किबा height ho, एटा गोटे normal किछि न थाए, and MICO mid arm circumference जोटा रहउची और laboratory measurement and such as the iodine level, hemoglobin level, serum bilirubin level and example of the continuous variable देखिथिबे आपण माने ए सब hemoglobin टा कार माने को normal रहउची 10 रो 18 किंबा 19 पर्यंत कार तो को फीमेल 10 रहउची कार 11 रहउची कार 19 रहउची कार 12 रहउची तो वेरिएबल टा कोन होउची चेंजेस होउची ठीक ना नहीं
यस मैडम
गोटे एतिकी टू एतिकी नंबर पर्यंत एंथ्रोपोमेट्रिक मेजरमेंट बॉडी रो वेट कथा कहबा बॉडी रो हाइट कथा कहबा एटा एटा गोटे फिक्स न थाए माने करो मोर जेतिकी थिबो आपण माने कर सेतिकी न थाई पारे तो एही भलिया जो जेंति की माने करो ब्लड प्रेशर नॉर्मल ब्लड प्रेशर इज 120/80 mmHg बट आमे तो गोटे 10टा पेशेंट को नबा तो सेटा कोन हुए एतिकी रु एतिकी भितरे रहि जाय तो एतिकी रु एतिकी जो हुए दैट इज कॉल्ड एज द कंटीन्यूअस वेरिएबल बुझियला
आज्ञा
श्रीदत्त्री बुझी होची
Yes, ma'am, बुझे.
now I will discuss about the stochastic and the deterministic variable. What is the stochastic and the deterministic variable? While if we will studying about the relationship between the maternal anemia and the birth weight, anemia is a factor and the outcome birth weight is a response, and the response is considered as the stochastic. ओके जेमती कि मन कर आम देखा जदि मेटरनाल एनीमिया एंड बार्थ वेट जदि गोटे मदर ही निजे एनीमिया थी बार्थ वेट आउटकम टा होची बार्थ वेट एंड दैट एनीमिया इज द फैक्टर एंड द आउटकम एनीमिया इज द फैक्टर जेहेतु मदर एनीमिया थिला सेहि पई बार्थ वेट अफेक्टेड है कि कम है कि आसीबो इट्स नॉर्मल यस और नो
यस
मदर जदि एनीमिया थिबो ताले ता बेबीटा सेमिति स्ट्रेंदी है कि बा ठीक है कि किंबा तार नॉर्मल आसीबो बोली किछि माने अछि ना तार नॉर्मल बॉडी वेट आसीबो बोली माने अछि ठीक ना हम भूल कहूछि
मैडम जदि एनीमिक थिबो देन बेबी भी एनीमिक भी हेई पारे ना मन
मोस्ट प्रोबेबली हेई पारे माने 80% चांसेस एनीमिया हबार बिकॉज़ ता बॉडी रे तो हीमोग्लोबिन नाही ना तार तो सिंथेसिस हेले सिना थ्रू द मैटरनल न्यूट्रिशन रे फीटस पाक को जाई कि तार न्यूट्रिएंट पाई कि जाई कि तार हीमोग्लोबिन सिंथेसिस हबो जोटी मदर ही नते मदर छडा तो जे कोड न्यूट्रिशन पाउनी ना बेबी जितल इंट्रा यूटेराइन कैविटी भीतर थाउची अंडरस्टूड ना
आज्ञा
एमते नो ना हम बाहर किसी सप्लीमेंट को दे दोचनी बाहर इंजेक्ट करी किस देले किस देलेनी ना जहां से नेला फ्रॉम द मदर ओनली बुझिले तो जोटी मदर ही कम थियो माने कर आपन को एबे मिताली मु तुमको मागिली 50000 टका मते धार दियो माने करज दियो तो जो तुम 60000 थिबो ताल तुम चिंता करबे ना मैडम मते मागुछन 50000 देबी जो तुम 10000 थिबो तुम 50000 चिंता केमते करियो
आज्ञा
तापरे आउ सेटु मु कोन पाइबी कि जस्ट लाइक दैट मदर ही ब्लड नाही हीमोग्लोबिन लेस अछि तर ऑक्सीजन सैचुरेशन भी कम अछि त पिला कोन पाइबो ताले nothing and mainly while studying the relationship between the maternal anemia and the birth weight consider the mainly birth weight anemia is the factor and the outcome birth weight is response and thus responses are considered as the stochastic बुझिए ना and because they are subject to chance fluctuation they can be exactly predicted and to illustrate in our example mainly the birth weight which responses and likely to be influenced affected by the anemia and the factors are mainly considered the determinants factors is the considered the determinants because they are known beforehand and are no longer subject to chances the fluctuation most of the inferential statistical method we discussed in the articles apply to the stochastic rather than that of the deterministic variable I mean jaha bhi hame statistical body part statistical data naba hame se stochastic method re hi naba and the stochastic response birth weight and determinants hochi jota ki cause of the anemia that is the deterministic variable बुझिएला
आज्ञा
ma'am.
एंड सब बेले हमें गोटे डिजीज रो कॉज फैक्टर को हमें देखिबानी ता सहित माने ता सहित कॉज फैक्टर सहित को कारण लगे डिजीज होची एपिडेमियोलॉजिकली में स्टडी करबा ए तार रिस्क फैक्टर कौन रोचे, दैट इज आल्सो वेरी vital. And there are mainly three criteria for the risk factor, and these are the frequency of the disease varies by category or the value of the factors, that is the cigarette smoking and the lung cancer. If we will consider about the that intake of the cigarette and the lung cancer, heavy smokers are very prone likely to develop the lung cancer than that of the light smokers. Yes or no?
Yes.
Bus. And that factors must precede the onset of the disease. This is the particularly so for chronic disease of long duration. And that observed association must not be due to any source of error also. This is all about your the three types of variables. I already discussed about the what is the qualitative variables, and what is the I already discussed about the different types of variables, like the stochastic variables and the deterministic variables, and what is the qualitative variables and the quantitative variables, and what is the discrete and the what continuous variable. बुझिला एमती भी एग्जाम रे क्वेश्चन आसी पारे व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय वेरिएबल्स, एंड ब्रीफली इलाबोरेट अबाउट द डिफरेंट टाइप्स ऑफ वेरिएबल्स, किंबा शॉर्ट नोट्स रे मध्य दीटा डिफरेंस रे मध्य आसी पारे व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय स्टोकास्टिक वेरिएबल्स एंड द डिटरमिनिस्टिक वेरिएबल्स, व्हाट डू यू मीन बाय क्वालिटेटिव एंड द क्वांटिटेटिव वेरिएबल्स, गिव एग्जांपल आल्सो. बुझिला ती पर्यंत?
आज्ञा.
Yes, ma'am.
कौन कहउचंती राजलक्ष्मी मैम?
नाଇଁ ମ୍ୟାମ୍ ବୁଝିହେଲା.
Okay, now I will discuss about the biostatistics. What is biostatistics? A very important chapter for you. What is statistics? Statistics is an area of science mainly concerned with the extraction of information from the numerical data and its uses in making inferences about a population from which the data are obtained. Biostatistics is a mainly area of the science concerned with the extraction of information from the numerical data. जो data में रखी मैंने पाइबा from the group of population or from the group जो हमें collect करिबा, and it's mainly used in the making the inferences about a population from which the what data are obtained. That is the what statistics. And this biostatistics is the science of management of mainly uncertainty in nutrition health research. Biostatistics is the science of management. ଆପଣ ୱେଟ୍ କରନ୍ତୁ, ଏବେ ତ ଡକ୍ଟର ଆସିବେ ଦେଖେଇଦେବେ ସେଠି ରେଜିଷ୍ଟ୍ରେସନ କରିକି. ଆଚ୍ଛା ରେଜିଷ୍ଟ୍ରେସନ କରିବେ? ହଁ ରେଜିଷ୍ଟ୍ରେସନ କରିବେ. କୋଠି କରିବେ ଯେ? ହଁ ସେଠି ବସିଥିବେ. କ୍ଲୋଜ୍ ନେଇକି ଯିବା. ହଁ ଏ 5ଟା ହେଇଗଲାଣି, ଖୋଲିଦେବେ. ଆପଣ ଅପେକ୍ଷା କରନ୍ତୁ. ରେଜିଷ୍ଟ୍ରେସନ 5ଟା ଖୋଲା ହବ. ହଁ 5ଟା ହେଇଗଲାଣି, 5ଟା ଖୋଲିଦେବେ. ଆପଣ ଦେଖନ୍ତୁ ଆସିଛି. And this biostatistics is the science of management of the uncertainty in nutritional health research. Okay, the most common sources of uncertainty in nutrition and health research is in the natural biologic variable, and that variable such as the invariable age, sex, birth order, height, weight, and between and within the individual. And environmental variability. Environmental variability means in environmental, that also the environmental factor is also responsible for the different type of disorder. Like the in the if we will consider about the environmental factor, it may be it may be due to the what pollution and nutrition exposure to the microorganism, and also insects, flies. These all are the environmental variables. And the variations between the laboratory's instrument, observers, etc. Variation between the laboratory instrument and observers means what? What do you mean by these two things? Laboratory variance and the observance means what? Very simple ଜିନିଷ ନା ଦେଖିଥିବ, ଯେତେବେଳେ ବି ଆମେ କିଛି ଗୋଟେ କିଛି ଗୋଟେ ଡିଜର୍ଡର ହଉଛି ରୋଗ ହଉଛି ଆମେ ସବୁବେଳେ ଟ୍ରାଏ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ଯେ ଗୋଟେ ଭଲ ଲ୍ୟାବରେ ଆମେ ଦବା या कि रिपोर्ट्स टा ठीक आसीबो हमर यस और नो
yes
यस और नो कारण
yes
हमर जे कोन से डिजर्डर रो डायग्नोसिस डिपेंड करे पेशेंट रो रिपोर्ट्स ऊपर यस और नो
yes ma'am
तो
Yes.
पैथोलॉजिकल इन्वेस्टिगेशन रो जो रिपोर्ट्स टा थाए ना से रिपोर्ट्स जहां फाइंड आउट जहां करतबे अकॉर्डिंगली यू विल टेक द मेडिकेशन ना यस और नो
yes yes
जेमती कि आपण माने देखिथिबे जेतोळ प्लेन रूटीन माइक्रोस्कोप कॉलेज जदि किछि माने यूरिन इन्फेक्शन हिचे हम रूटीन माइक्रोस्कोप करछन किछि भी तार इन्वेस्टिगेशन किछि भी आसने नॉर्मल आसुछि पर्सल नॉर्मल आसुछि एपिथेलियल सेल्स नॉर्मल आसुछि तो हमें कोन करछन हमें विल गो फॉर द कल्चर टेस्ट यूरिन कल्चर
yes
करछन जेतेबेले
हाँ
if we will go through the reports of the urine culture we will got one particular type of medication or antibiotics is jota ki applicable habo for that particular type of microorganism
microorganism
yes or no
yes ma'am
तो ସେଇଟା ଗୋଟେ very vital factor and observer किए आपण को ऑब्जर्व करूची से किएटा किए जे लैब रे इन्वेस्टिगेट करूची आपनकर रिपोर्ट्स को जे फाइंड आउट करूची डिजीज को जे फाइंड आउट करूची माने करो सिंपल जिंस जदि गोटे पेशेंट रो टाइफाइड थिबो हैला एंटेरिक फीवर थिबो जदि हमें ब्लड देइछंती सैंपल देइछंती एंटेरिक फीवर थाई कि जदि जी ऑब्जर्व करिछि से यदि नॉर्मल रिपोर्ट्स बोली दे देछि the doctors they will not start the medication for the management of your enteric fever they will start the simple medication simple antibiotic only they will not start the chloramphenicol groups of medication which is mainly applicable for the management of your what enteric fever how they will be start if you will not confirm about the enteric fever then how the doctor will be start the medication unless until they will be not clear about the what reports they will not start the medication like such type of particular type of antibiotics that's why laboratory investigation and the what jo observer je
observer
dekhi that's very vital in epidemiological study we will consider about all these things bujhiyala
again
Yes, ma'am.
श्रीदत्री कौन हैला किछ असुविधा हिची
No, ma'am.
बुझियोनी किछि
आज्ञा मैम बुझिहेला
बुझिला आ पूरे साइलेंट ही जाय छ मोले खाइ न बोधे खाइ न के जे
No, ma'am.
खाइ न ସେଇଥିପାଇଁ ଏନର୍ଜି
ନା
ପାଉନି ଆଉ
ମ୍ୟାମ୍
କଣ ପାଇଁ
ଆକ୍ଚୁଆଲି ଟିକେ ମ୍ୟାମ୍ ଗୋଟେ କାମ ଥିଲା ଟିକେ ଡକୁମେଣ୍ଟ ଭେରିଫିକେସନ ପାଇଁ ଗୋଟେ ଯାଇଥିଲି ତ ଆସୁ ଆସୁ କ୍ଲାସ ଷ୍ଟାର୍ଟ ହେଇଗଲା
କୋଉଠି ଚାକିରି ବାକିରି ପାଇଲ ବୋଧେ
ନା
ଆଁ
ମ୍ୟାମ୍ ଗୋଟେ ଏକ୍ସାମ ର ଡକୁମେଣ୍ଟ ଭେରିଫିକେସନ ଥିଲା ଏକ୍ସାମ ର
ଆଚ୍ଛା
ଡକୁମେଣ୍ଟ ଭେରିଫିକେସନ ଥିଲା ସେଇ
ଆଚ୍ଛା ଘରେ ଅଛ ତ ନା ବାହାରେ କୋଉଠି ଅଛ
ଆଜ୍ଞା ମ୍ୟାମ୍ ଘରେ ଅଛି
ଘରେ ଅଛି ତ ମାମାଙ୍କୁ ମାଗି କଣ ଟିକେ ସାଇଡ୍ ରେ ରଖି ଟିକେ ଟିକେ ଖାଇଦିଅ ଏଣ୍ଡ ଏଦର ମାନେ ସେ ସାଇଡ୍ ରେ କାନଟା ଖୋଲା ରଖିକି ମ୍ୟାଡାମ ଯେ କହୁଛନ୍ତି ଶୁଣିଥା ହେଲା
ଆଜ୍ଞା ମ୍ୟାମ୍
ହ୍ୟାଲୋ
ଶୁଣୁଛି ଆଜ୍ଞା
ହଁ କାରଣ ତମେ
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ଯଦି
ମ୍ୟାମ୍
ପ୍ରପରଲି
ଶୁଣୁଛି
ତମେ ଯଦି ପ୍ରପରଲି ୱେଲ୍ ନ୍ୟୁଟ୍ରିସନ ନ ନବ ଦେନ୍ ତମେ କାହାକୁ କଣ ଗାଇଡ କରିବ ଠିକ ନା ନାଇଁ
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ହୁଁ ଆର ବର୍ଷ ଗୋଟେ ଭଲ
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ନ୍ୟୁଟ୍ରିସନିଷ୍ଟ ହବ ନା ତମେ ତ ଏବେଠୁ ନିଜକୁ ଆଗେ ଫିଟ୍ ରଖ ନା
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ଓକେ
ଆଜ୍ଞା ଆଜ୍ଞା ମ୍ୟାମ୍
The environmental factor, I already discussed about the environmental factors and the nutritional factor and the variation between the laboratory instrument observer etc. Further, the aggravates these uncertainties. Other sources uncertainty are the incomplete information of the subject and lack of medical knowledge, validity and the reliability of the tools used for the research and mainly statistics deals with the measuring these uncertainties to evaluate their impact and of course to keep this impact under control what statistics mainly deals with the measuring these uncertainties ବୁଝିଲା ନାହିଁ ସେ ପୁରା deeply ଯିବ cause କ'ଣ केते जण पॉपुलेशन रो किछिटा ग्रुप को नहीं कि सेही थ्रू स्ट्राटा करिकि सेही थ्रू डाटा कलेक्शन करिवो एंड ताको इवैल्यूएट करिवो एंड तार इंपैक्ट आमे रिसर्च जिते बेले करबा कोन करबा गोटे ग्रुप करबा से ग्रुपिज्म भितरे आमे किछि जण को ए स्पेसिफिक माने कर आमे न्यूट्रिशन रो आमे करबा एनीमिया को प्रिवेंट करिया पे आमे माने करो आमे आयरन रिच फूड देकी एनीमिया को प्रिवेंट करबा तो स्पेसिफिकली आमे 30 कंट्रोल ग्रुप्स को रखिबा जो 30 ग्रुप्स को आमे नबस आयरन रिच डाइट देबा आउ 30 ग्रुप्स को बिना ये नॉर्मली से माने जेमति खाउचंती खाइबे तो डेफिनेटली तो एंड ऑफ आवर स्टडी हमें कोन पाइबो जदि जो माने आयरन रिच फूड हमें जदि प्रॉपर्ली हमें गाइड करि प्रॉपर्ली से माने नेथिबे डेफिनेटली दे विल इंक्रीज देयर आयरन लेवल यस और नो
yes
तो से
Yes.
में को अंडर कंट्रोल रे रखिबा एंड को इवैल्यूएट टाइम टू टाइम वी हैव टू इवैल्यूएट दैट एंड कलेक्ट द डाटा प्रॉपर्ली बुझियला ताको मॉनिटर हमें करबो मॉनिटरिंग करबा and mainly the general principle to minimize the impact of the uncertainties mainly the inclusion of control groups where appropriate ମୁଁ କହିଲି ସେଟା ଆପଣଙ୍କୁ inclusion of the control groups where appropriate and proper selection of the subject ओके आमे जो ग्रुप सब्जेक्ट माने गोटे जो भी इंडिविजुअल्स को हमें सिलेक्ट करचंती से इंडिविजुअल को हम प्रॉपर्ली सिलेक्शन ऑफ द सब्जेक्ट्स and matching or randomization and the use of standardized methods okay standardized method you have to use the standardized method and the statistician quantifies the information develops and the uses various design and sampling procedure and it's mainly involved with the analysis and the inference making then
मैम से जो रैंडमाइजेशन स्टेप बुझी पलेनी
हाँ
मैम
सेटा
फर्स्ट इट मेथड
मेनली फर्स्ट होची जेतलो आमे कोन करबे इंक्लूजन ऑफ द कंट्रोल ग्रुप वेयर एप्रोप्रिएट जो केस रे हमको दरकार गोटे एप्रोप्रिएट कंट्रोल ग्रुप को नेकी आमे सेटु आमे कोन करबा डाटा कलेक्शन करबा एंड जो मान को आमे सिलेक्शन करबा हमर ग्रुप रे बा जो मान को आमे डाटा जो मान को कलेक्ट करबा से मान को नियत रूपे गोटे प्रॉपर सिलेक्शन ऑफ द सब्जेक्ट प्रॉपर आमे ग्रुप को आमे सिलेक्शन कर दैट इज आल्सो वेरी वाइटल and matching or randomization means randomly हमें सेमान कोटू माने कर 10टा ग्रुप हमें नहीं चंदी randomly हमने कितना सिलेक्ट करी कि सही थ्रू हमें डाटा कलेक्ट करिवा and use of the standardized method होची हमर आगु को जतला हमें हाइपोथेसिस पढिबा null hypothesis कोन अल्टरनेटिव हाइपोथेसिस कोन केमते हमें कलेक्शन डाटा कलेक्शन करले को मेथड हमें यूज करबा स्टैंडर्डाइज्ड मेथड हां यस
मैम हमें जदि रैंडम सैंपल नबा ताले हमें प्रॉपर सिलेक्शन ऑफ सब्जेक्ट को बेसिस रे करबा सिलेक्शन ऑफ सब्जेक्ट माने जो प्रॉपर एप्रोप्रिएट सिलेक्शन सब्जेक्ट रो करबा को बेसिस रे करबा ताकि तंग रैंडम माने जदि रैंडम ऑब्जर्वेशन नबा ताले माने नॉर्मल को भी सब्जेक्ट सिलेक्ट करले हबो इन प्रॉपर एप्रोप्रिएट सब्जेक्ट सिलेक्ट करबा कोन माने
हाँ रेंडमली रेंडमाइजेशन मैचिंग तांकर जो ग्रुप को हमें सिलेक्ट करबा जो स्ट्राटा को हमें नबा जो स्ट्राटा हमें चूज करबा सेमानक भितरे किछि मैचिंग रहउथो माने यूनिकनेस रहउथो सेही थ्रू ही हमें रेंडमली डाटा कलेक्ट करबा माने करो आमे तो तले रिसर्च करचंती गोटे फाइनाइट माने गोटे लिमिटेड ग्रुप को नै कि तमे केबे भी डाटा में कलेक्ट करि परिबे ना जो माने रिसर्च करिवे तो ग्रुप ऑफ पॉपुलेशन माने इनटू गोटे फाइनाइट नंबर नथि इनफिनाइट नंबर माने इनटू बड़ बड़ एरिया को नै कि मध्ये हम सेटु मध्ये तो हम डाटा कलेक्ट कर तो रैंडमली वी हैव टू सिलेक्ट द डाटा बुझिला नै एक्चुअली एबे पर्यंत तमे रिसर्च मेथोडोलॉजी जोटा माने रिसर्च स्टैटिस्टिक्स एंड रिसर्च मेथोडोलॉजी गोटे वास्ट सब्जेक्ट जोटा कि हमरा एबे आरंभ भी हेइ नै मु जस्ट एपिडेमियोलॉजी रो व्हाट इज द व्हाई वी आर यूजिंग दिस एपिडेमियोलॉजी व्हाट इज स्टैटिस्टिक्स व्हाट इज रिसर्च व्हाट इज हाइपोथेसिस देन ए सब सिंपल जिंस जानले पर जे कि मु पूरा ब्रीफली हमें केमती डाटा कलेक्शन करबा को ग्रुप रो हमें डाटा कलेक्शन करबा को मेथड रे हमें डाटा कलेक्शन करबा आई विल डिस्कस वेरी ब्रीफली अबाउट ऑल दिस थिंग्स बुझी पारो छ
ओके आज्ञा
And these statistics mainly now performs the major roles in the research. Mainly, due to these statistics, it helps used to assess random variation and to control the confounding, to evaluate the interaction between the factors, and to determine the sample size, and to decide on the design of for the studies and the facilitate the decision making also. What is hypothesis? What do you mean by hypothesis? Hypothesis कले हम कौन बुझिबा?
ଗୋଟେ ପର୍ଟିକୁଲାର ଗୋଟେ ପର୍ଟିକୁଲାର ମାନେ ଇଏ ସବଜେକ୍ଟ ଉପରେ ମାନେ ଯାହା ଯାହା ଥଟ୍ ଆସିପାରୁଛି ସେଇଟାକୁ ହିଁ ହାଇପୋଥେସିସ୍ ମାନେ ଏନିମିକ୍ ଧର ଗୋଟେ ସବଜେକ୍ଟ ହେଲା ଦେନ୍ ତା କଣ ପାଇଁ ହେଇପାରେ କୋଉ ମାନେ କୋଉ କୋଉ ଆଙ୍ଗେଲରେ କଣ କଜଟା କଣ କଣ ହେଇପାରେ ସେଇଟା ହିଁ ହାଇପୋଥେସିସ୍।
Assumption.
ଆଜମ୍ପସନ୍ ହଁ
ହୁଁ ଆପଣ ଯାହା କହୁଛନ୍ତି ନା ମୁଁ
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ଭାବୁଛି assumption. Hypothesis means assumption.
ନା ମୁଁ
Hypothesis,
ଭାବୁଛି ସେ ମାନେ ଠିକଟା
hypothesis is a tentative proposition, and mainly it suggested as a solution to a problem or an explanation of some phenomena. बुझिएला?
ନା ମ୍ୟାଡାମ
Hypothesis, it suggested as a solution to a problem. प्रत्येक प्रोब्लेम अच्छी मीन्स मनेकर मोर कैंसर होउछि बुझिएला तो
ଆଜ୍ଞା
कैंसर गोटे डिसऑर्डर आमे तो एपिडेमियोलॉजिकली रिसर्च रे हम कोन स्पेसिफिकली आमे ओनली आमे इटी कोन डिजीज कॉज प्रिवेंशन एंड मोड ऑफ ट्रांसमिशन एंड फैक्टर्स पॉजिटिव ऑर्गेनिज्म ए सब को हम डिस्कस करछन ना बे ए जो एपिडेमियोलॉजी रे तो जदि मनेकर हाइपोथेसिस होची गोटे अज ए सॉल्यूशन टू ए प्रॉब्लम प्रत्येक प्रॉब्लम अछि मन तर सॉल्यूशन निहाती अछि और एज इन द एक्सप्लेनेशन ऑफ सम फेनोमेना जेंति मु कहिली गोटे डिजीज जेतोळे होची गोटे कारण रेस्पोंसिबल न जदि भी डिजीज हला हमें डिजीज रो कारण कोन देखुचंती डिजीज रो मोड ऑफ ट्रांसमिशन देखुचंती डिजीज रो पॉजिटिव फैक्टर देखुचंती डिजीज को जहाँ जी हो जाए केमती क्लीयर हम एंड आगु को जमी आउ से प्रकार डिजर्डर हम ना आ जदि से डिजर्डर नहीं तार कौन कॉम्प्लिकेशन केमती किसी न हम ये सब तो हूँ रिसर्च
ଆଜ୍ଞା
रिसर्च माने ऑलरेडी जहाँ फाइंडिंग्स देख आम जोटार मन कर तुम्हें आज नहीं कैंसर को रिसर्च कर ताको कोरिलेट करके न्यूट्रिशन रे तमें आज प्रथम पर्सन नुह जी कि तमें ही गोटे वन एंड ओनली पर्सन जी कि कैंसर को न्यूट्रिशन सहित रिलेट करके गोटे पेपर को स्टडी करबो किबा गोटे रिसर्च आरंभ करबो तम पूर्वरु भी तम भलिया हजार हजार कोटी कोटी लोक प्रत्येक जगार से कैंसर को लेकिन से फूड एंड न्यूट्रिशन को लेकिन रिसर्च ऑलरेडी कर देथिबे तो तमर काम है कौन से सब जिनस को स्टडी करबो जेहेतु से ऑलरेडी रिसर्च कर सारछन से बाबत रे ता सहित आउ को जिनसटा तमे नुआ जिनस जोटा कोटा कि इन्वेंट करिवो जोटा कि से भलिया कार्सिनोमा केस रे आमे ताको केसेस को कोन करिबा माने कमै दै परिबा किबा जदि भी कैंसर होची ताको से बढ़ेबा को तबनी तार आ कौन सी प्रकार को कॉम्प्लिकेशन हबने आउ किछि न्यू जिनस को इन्वेंशन तमे करबो दैट इज द रिसर्च ना
ଆଜ୍ଞା
रिसर्च माने एटा नु जे जहा ऑलरेडी जण जण कर दे कि थोइ दिसंती सेटा ही नो ता सहित आपण कोन नुआ जिनस इंप्लीमेंट करि पारुचंती कोन त न्यू जिनस आनी कि सोसाइटी सामने रे दउचंती जो थिरे कि आउ किछि एडिशनल जिनस मनुष्य जाको भलो करिबारे हेल्पफुल होउची बुझी पाले ना नै
ହଁ ମ୍ୟାଡାମ
जेमती कि मु कहिबे माने कर पर्पल कलर फ्रूट्स या वेजिटेबल जदि हमें फ्रूट्स रेगुलर बेसिस रे नउचंती इट इज एंटी कार्सिनोजेनिक इफेक्ट because it contains the because it contains the richest sources of what antioxidant flavonoids EPA and other things is also there जोटा कि से हमर जो कैंसर सेल को जो बढ़ेबा को से दब नहीं से सेल रो कोन करूची डीजेनरेशन करि दोची एटा तो ऑलरेडी अन्य लोक माने रिसर्च करके रखी देइचंती सेटा को हमें पढुचंती बट आमे आम इन्वेंशन रे आमे जे तो सेही टॉपिक को नेकी रिसर्च करबे आउ को जिंस सेही बले जिंस अछि जोटा कि ताको मध्य आउरी सपोर्टिव हे परिबो या कि आम पेशेंट रो बेनिफिट हे परिबो सोसाइटी रो बेनिफिट हे परिबो सेटा होची रिसर्च search for a new things that is the research again and again we will search for the new things एमिति न हो जे जहां हे कि अछि ताकू ही हमें कॉपी पेस्ट करके थोइबो से सब सिस्टम ऑलरेडी बंद हे गेल बुझिला ना ने आमे माने करो जो माने रिसर्च करिवे इस आसुना दे असंतो कोन हैला
अरे इंजेक्शन करनी
हां सेपटे बच्चा न बुझिला आगे कोन थिला जिते बळे रिसर्च माने कर हमें गोटे रिसर्च पब्लिकेशन करिबार अछि रिसर्च गोटे थेसिस गोटे रिसर्च करू छन त हमें कोन कोठले आकरू कोन करथिले किछि पुराना जिंस जहां अछि ताको नै कि कॉपी पेस्ट करके हमें नै कि ताको दे दोथिले से ओडा हे जाउथला बट एबे से ओडा कोन हो आपन को न्यू किछि नेशनल इंटरनेशनल लेवल रे किछि आपन को पब्लिकेशन थिबा दरकार एंड कौन सी प्रकार जिनस जोटा कि ऑलरेडी गोटे पब्लिकेशन हेची एंड आपण ताको नै चंती ताले सेटा टोटल रिजेक्शन हे जीवो बिकॉज़ एबे न्यू टेक्नोलॉजी रे ना आपण को न्यू इन्वेंशन कोन न्यू रिसर्च कोन यू हैव टू पुट दैट वन आउ पुराना वाला जिनस को कॉपी आपण 50 टा बही को कलेक्ट करके आपण किछि लिखि परिबे बट कार लिखा वाला पब्लिकेशन को आनि के आपण लिखि के थोइ परिबे नै बुझियला मिताली
आगे
all of you clear about that na
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir.
hypothesis is the tentative proposition suggested as the solution to a problem or as the explanation of some phenomenon that is the hypothesis आगु को हमें hypothesis details भी पढ़िबा and statistical hypothesis techniques mainly focus on the null hypothesis. What is null hypothesis? So hypothesis is mainly two types. You remember this point. Hypothesis is broadly divided into what? Two types. One is the null hypothesis. Another one is the alternative hypothesis. Understood? One is the null hypothesis. N-U-L-L, null hypothesis. And the another one is your alternative hypothesis. What is this null hypothesis? Null hypothesis means null hypothesis, which is hypothesis, no association between the two variables. I already discussed about what is the variables, what is that discrete and the continuous variable, what is the quantitative and the qualitative variables, what is the stochastic and the deterministic variables. And if in these two variables there is no relation, no association between the two variables, it is called as the what? Null hypothesis. But in the alternative hypothesis, in alternative hypothesis, mainly if the data provides evidence against the null hypothesis, then the hypothesis can be rejected in favor of the alternative hypothesis, which very simple would states that there is an association between the two variables. If null hypothesis, jodi null hypothesis ta kon hobo reject he jibo, if the data provides evidence against the null hypothesis, then the hypothesis can be rejected. Jodi data properly na hoichi, then that hypothesis will be rejected. And jodi once null hypothesis will be rejected, na, then it will security asibo na alternative hypothesis ka asibo. In alternative hypothesis, there is the association between the two variables. So two variables, if there is no association between the two variables, it is called as the null hypothesis. In alternative hypothesis, when the null hypothesis is rejected, then it will alternative hypothesis ta accept kariba. And alternative hypothesis is, in alternative hypothesis there is the association between the two variables. It is called as the what? Alternative hypothesis. बुझिएला?
आगे
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
In alternative hypothesis can be one-sided. Okay, one-sided means you can state that there is the specifically positive or the negative association between the two variables. In the alternative hypothesis, there is the positive or the negative association between the two variables. And this is all about your what? Null hypothesis and the alternative hypothesis. Now we will discuss about the research. And what is the scientific approaches of the research? Very vital. पिला माने पूरा भल से निहाती सुनो, एटा बहुत इंपोर्टेंट तम पई जो माने पीएचडी करिवो एंड आगो पई जो माने नेट क्वालिफाई करिया पई चाहू एटा बहुत इंपोर्टेंट, भल से सुनो एटा जदि न भी बुझी परछ अगेन एंड अगेन यू कैन आस्क मी. Research मैं आगुरु कहि देछि what is the definition of research. Research is in the endeavor to discover the intellectual and the practical answers to problems through the application of scientific methods to the knowledge to the knowable universe. Research is the endeavor to discover the intellectual and the practical answers टू प्रॉब्लम, जे कौन सी प्रॉब्लम रो आंसर को फाइंड आउट करबा थ्रू द एप्लीकेशन ऑफ द साइंटिफिक मेथड. एमती नुह जे जोटा 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 जेंति बिना साइंटिफिकली मेथड रे हम रिसर्च करि परिबा नाही. बाय एप्लीकेशन ऑफ द साइंटिफिक मेथड्स टू द नोएबल यूनिवर्स, दैट इज द research scientific methods and mainly research is the scientific methods and the procedure have been developed and used to answer the question like what, how, why about phenomenon of the interest. And mainly the research is the critical and the exhaustive investigation or the experimentation having as its aim the revision of accepted conclusion in the lights of newly discovered fact. जो कथा मु आपण माने को कहउतिनी बुझिला, जोटा अछि तक हमें पुराना जिंस जहाँ भी अछि ओल्ड जिंस जो माने कि रिसर्च ऑलरेडी करि सरछंती सेही जिंस को हमें एक्सेप्ट करिबा ए आमे हमर रिसर्च रे आमे आ किछि न्यू जिंस इम्प्लीमेंटेशन करिबा जोथिरे कि अदर मानकर बेनिफिट हबो, सोसाइटी रो बेनिफिट हबो. दैट इज द रिसर्च. खाली जहाँ अच्छी ताको हमें बाहर करके एक्सप्लोर करबे सेटा न, आमे हमर ताको एक्सेप्ट करबा, न्यू जिंस को इंप्लीमेंट करबा, न्यू नॉलेज को साइंटिफिकली मेथड रे ताको हमें करबा. दैट इज द रिसर्च. बुझिएला?
यस मैम.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
ओके. Thus the research किए करिबा जण रिसर्चर निहाती रिसर्च करिबे. The researchers are constantly concerned not only with the discovering the new things but also verifying accepted conclusion or the theories. जहाँ भी अन्य जणे माने जहाँ भी करि देइछंती ताको नै कि मध्ये तमे एनालाइज करि परिबो, ताको नै कि मध्ये तमे इवैल्यूएट करि परिबो, ताको नै कि तमे वेरीफाई करि परिबो. तापरे जहाँ वेरीफाई कला पे ताको तमे एक्सेप्ट करबा सत कंक्लूजन कि नुआ थ्योरी मध्ये तमे निजे इंप्लीमेंट करि परिबो. And the persons had said there is no shortcut to the truth. Mainly knowledge of the universal except through the gateway of the scientific method. What is science? What is science? All of you are the completed the BSc. Am I right or wrong?
यस.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell me what is the meaning of
Yes, ma'am.
science? Science कहले विज्ञान कहले हम कोन बुझछंती?
Ma'am, scientific reason or logical reason to analyze a phenomena.
that is science. Hmm?
Yes, ma'am. And invention of new technologies and new medicine.
କଣ invention of new technology.
New technology, new things, and from the previous, and ma'am, from the, systematic and logical and scientific analysis of a phenomena. ମାନେ ଯଦି କିଛି ହଉଛି ତା ପଛରେ scientific reason କଣ? That is the study of science.
That is the study of science. Huh?
Ma'am, that's science.
ପିତାଲି ମ୍ୟାଡାମ ସାଇନ୍ସ କହିଲେ ଆମେ କଣ ବୁଝିବୁ? ସିମ୍ପଲି କୁହନ୍ତୁ ଆପଣ ସାଇନ୍ସ କହିଲେ ଆମେ ବିଜ୍ଞାନ କହିଲେ କଣ ବୁଝିବା? In science, you are using the different types of scientific method, na?
Yes.
What are the scientific method? It includes what?
Scientific method ଯେମିତି କି measuring ପାଇଁ balance and
Measuring time.
weighing balance or chemicals
ଆପଣ ବି BSc ବୋଧେ?
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ରାଜଲକ୍ଷ୍ମୀ ମ୍ୟାମ୍
Yes, ma'am.
କଣ? ସାଇନ୍ସ ମାନେ କଣ? All of you have the BSc background. ମତେ ଲାଷ୍ଟ କ୍ଲାସରେ ନେକ୍ସଟ କ୍ଲାସରେ ପ୍ରଥମେ ସାଇନ୍ସ କଣ ବୁଝେଇବେ ହେଲା ଆପଣ ମାନେ ମତେ ବୁଝିବେ ସାଇନ୍ସ କଣ ତାପରେ ମୁଁ ରିସର୍ଚ୍ଚ ଆଡକୁ ମୁଁ ଯିବି କାରଣ ଏଇଟା ଆପଣ ମାନେ ଭଲସେ ଜାଣିଛନ୍ତି ହୁଏତ ଏକ୍ସପ୍ଲେନ୍ କରୁନାହାନ୍ତି କରିପାରୁନାହାନ୍ତି କଣ ମୁଁ ଏଟା କହିପାରୁନି ବଟ୍ ବିଇଙ୍ଗ ଏ BSc ଷ୍ଟୁଡେଣ୍ଟସ୍ ଏଣ୍ଡ କାଲି ସକାଳେ ଆପଣ ଗୋଟେ ଆଗକୁ ଆହୁରି ବଢିବେ ତ ଆପଣ ମତେ ସାଇନ୍ସ କଣ ନ କହିଲେ ରିସର୍ଚ୍ଚ ଆମେ କଣ ଜାଣିବା ତାହେଲେ ରିସର୍ଚ୍ଚ ତ ବହୁତ ଉପରକୁ ଠିକ ନା ନାଇଁ ଶ୍ରୀଦତ୍ରୀ ଘୋଷ
Yes, ma'am.
କହିବେ ନେକ୍ସଟ କ୍ଲାସରେ ନା ମ୍ୟାଡାମ
ଆଜ୍ଞା
ପଚାରିଲେ
ma'am.
ବୋଲି କ୍ଲାସ କରିବେନି
No, ma'am.
ମ୍ୟାଡାମ ପଚାରିଲେ ବୋଲି କ୍ଲାସ କରିବେନି କି ସେମିତି ଅଛି ନା କଣ
ନାଇଁ ମ୍ୟାଡ଼ାମ
ନା ନା
ମୁଁ
madam.
ସେ ସେଇଆ ନା ମ୍ୟାଡାମ ପଚାରୁଛନ୍ତି କ୍ଲାସରେ କାହିଁ କ୍ଲାସ କରିବା ମତେ କହିଲା ପରେ ମୁଁ ଯାଇକି ପଢେଇବି ତାପରେ ଆଗକୁ ହେଲା
ଆଜ୍ଞା
research
ଆଜ୍ଞା
research
ma'am.
what is research research is a very critical and exhaustive investigation okay or the experimentation having as its aim the revision of accepted conclusion ମୁଁ ଆରମ୍ଭରୁ କହିଛି 100 ଥର କହିଥିଲି revision of the accepted conclusion in the lights of newly discovered fact ଯୋଉଟା ଅଛି ତାକୁ ଆମେ revision of the accepted conclusion in the lights of the newly discovered fact and mainly this research the manipulation of the things concept or the symbols for the purpose of the generalizing to extend the correct or the verifying the knowledge whether that knowledge aids in construction of theory or in the practice of an art that is research in research there is the manipulation of the things ଆମେ ସେଥିରେ କିଛି ଜିନିଷ ଆଡ୍ କରିବା କିଛି ଜିନିଷ ସବଷ୍ଟ୍ରାକ୍ଟ କରିବା ତାକୁ ମ୍ୟାନିପୁଲେଟ୍ କରିବା concept or the symbols for the purpose of the generalizing to extends correct or verifying the knowledge ओके मु कहली कहार कोनटा अछि माने हमें ताको आनी के कॉपी पेस्ट कर दबानी हमें आम नॉलेज अनुसार हमें ताको किछि आउ किछि बुक को पढ़िबा आउ किछि रिसर्च करिबा किछि ग्रुप को हमें नै के स्टडी करिबा किछि डाटा को कलेक्शन करी के हमें एनालाइज करिबा हमें वेरीफाई करिबा देन वी हैव टू इम्प्लीमेंट आवर नॉलेज whether that knowledge aids in construction of theory or in the practice of an art, that is the research. Okay, बुझी होची ना?
ଆଜ୍ଞା ମ୍ୟାମ୍।
Yes.
And mainly that knowledge may be used for the construction of a theory or the practice of an art. What is that construction of theory and the practice of an art? Mainly it implies that extended, corrected and verified the knowledge has two possible way which are not mutually exclusive, theoretical and the practical. All of you know about that. Many times now research is undertaken for the sake of knowledge, such use in the theory oriented only, or it often known as the pure or the basic or the theoretical research. In theoretical research is otherwise called as the basic research. Okay, basic research or the pure research. In pure research means many times the research is undertaken for the sake of knowledge only, and such use is the theory oriented. खाली हमको theory जानिबार अच्छी and theory oriented जोटा knowledge oriented जोटा that is the pure research, that is your basic research, that is called as the theoretical research. In the other hand, it may not be an end in itself, but we may use it for the welfare of the people, and these are called as the applied or the action oriented or the practice oriented. बुझिला गोटे जोटा प्योर रिसर्च कोन जानि पारला theoretical research कोन जहा प्योर रिसर्च ताहा and that basic research मध्ये ता, but in the that practical or the applied or the action oriented research is different from that of the theoretical research, because in the practice oriented research it may not be in the end it in itself, but we may use it for the welfare of the society, welfare of the peoples, and these are the applied research. These are also called as the action oriented research or the practice oriented research. Okay, बुझिएला?
ଆଜ୍ଞା ମ୍ୟାମ୍।
In nutrition now we undertake study of the various kinds, and they can be pure as well as the applied and the action oriented. जोटा मु कहिथिली न्यूट्रिशनल रिसर्च आगरु मध्ये मु कहिथिली न्यूट्रिशनल रिसर्च, and to extend the correct or the verify the knowledge in research, to extend correct and verify the knowledge, that means when a generalization is drawn in a contribute to the body of the knowledge na, which was existing at the point of time. For examples, when Jenkins did his work on the glycemic index in the 70s, this was added to the knowledge about how food may be distributed in the diet for the diabetic and how one can help to control the blood glucose. যদি আমি ডায়াবেটিক কেস কথা চিন্তা করিবা সেটি যদি আমি পেশেন্ট को किछि लो हाइपोग्लाइसेमिक डाइट दबा एंड सेतबेलको आमे कोन करबा गोटे ग्रुप गोटे स्ट्राटा फॉर्म करबा गोटे स्ट्राटा तयारी करबा एंड से स्ट्राटा रे आमे कोन करबा different group को different types of आमे different range रो glycemic index low glycemic index वाला food को आमे patient को administer करबा आफ्टर तापरे आमे ताको मॉनिटरिंग करबा तापरे आमे ताको इवैल्यूएट करबा आफ्टर इवैल्यूएशन आमे एयर पहुंचीबा जे जोटार जते लो ग्लाइसेमिक इंडेक्स रहितबो फूड जदि सेटा से माने कंज्यूम करछते ऑटोमेटिकली तार कोन हितिबो ब्लड रे ग्लूकोज लेवल ब्लड पेरिफेरी रे हो किबा यूरिन मध्ये ग्लूकोज लेवल कोन हितिबो विथ सर्टेन टाइम पर ऑटोमेटिकली इट विल बी रिड्यूस्ड. सेटा केमती हमें डाटा नबा फ्रॉम ए ग्रुप ऑफ पॉपुलेशन फ्रॉम द स्ट्राटा वी हैव टू कलेक्ट द डाटा एंड मॉनिटरिंग करबा माने टाइम टू टाइम वी हैव टू मॉनिटर दैट पेशेंट एंड आल्सो इवैल्यूएट प्रॉपर इवैल्यूएशन इज आल्सो वेरी इंपोर्टेंट. बुझी होची ना नहीं?
Again.
ଆଜ୍ଞା ମ୍ୟାମ୍।
And mainly in some generalization make scientific and re-examine the existing knowledge or make us amend or the modify our views. For example, in physics, newer discoveries about the subatomic particles lead to the revision of the accepted knowledge about the methods. आमे या बुझीबा जे रिसर्च रे जहाँ भी ऑलरेडी फाइंडिंग्स आमे पाई छंती आमे तो पाई नांती जेतेबेले आमे जो टॉपिक को नेकी रिसर्च करूचंती ऑलरेडी अन्य माने जोटा पाई सारी छंती सेटा को आमे निहाती रूपे फॉलो करिबा बट ता सहित आमे आम न्यू सोसाइटी पाई आमे कोन न्यू जिंस आमे देई परिबा सेटा होची बहुत बड़ इंपोर्टेंट एंड आम रिसर्च रे आमे कोन फाइंडिंग्स पाई छंती आमे जो डाटा नै छंती आम डाटा कलेक्शन करि छंती ताको आमे जति इवैल्यूएट करि छंती जति आमे रिसर्च करि छंती तार न्यू थिंग्स को यू हैव टू ताको फॉर्मुलेट करि कि ताको आमे आम फाइंडिंग्स रे जहाँ पाई छन ताको आमे इंप्लीमेंट करबे सेटा होची हमरो रिसर्च बुझियला
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
mainly जो findings हमें पाई चली the findings may help to correct the inconsistencies or errors in the existing body of knowledge हुए तो अपन जी जोटा रिसर्च करते सेटा तो फाइनल नुह ता परे भी आउ किछि आसी पारे yes or no जति की फाइंडिंग्स माने करो जे माने करो जहाँ पाई जाइछन्ति सेटा सेठी एंड हे जायने रिसर्च रो ताठू अधिक पोटेंशियल आपण बाहर करि पारंते किछि जदि आपण को रिसर्च आपण जति की प्रॉपर्ली करिछन तापरे तो सेटा को मध्ये आमे छाडी दे कि जेंति आग काल आगुरु आमे भाबुतिले जे कैंसर हे गेला माने लोक माने मरि जाउछन्ति किंतु सब कैंसर रे कोन लोक मरि जाउछन्ति आगुरु मरुथिले बिकॉज़ सेते बेलको साइंस सेते डेवलप कर नथिला बट एबे कोन हेछि बहुत सारा रिसर्च करी कि ताको न्यू फाइंडिंग्स माध्यम रे सोसाइटी को गोटे भलो मेसेज देछन सोसाइटी पे गोटे भलो वर्क करिछन जो मेडिकेशन माध्यम रे किसे एदर दैट मे बी केमो हो रेडिएशन हो कि अदर एमएनटी मेडिकल न्यूट्रिशन थेरेपी माध्यम रे हो जो कोनसी थेरेपी रे तो भलो ही जाउछि आजकल तो सेटा होछि कोन लेटेस्ट रिसर्च यस और नो हेलो
Yes,
am
ma'am.
I audible to everyone or not
Yes, ma'am.
why you all are remain silent if you will not interact with me what I will be thinking you say something na yes or no
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
and listen jette bele bi ame dekhi thibo seiti pai bole research ro सब bole new guidelines को follow करंती आज भी मु गोटे माने मोर पर्सनल अच्छा just wait कौन सी असुविधा होची
अच्छा आगे जो गाड़ी थी तो
अच्छा आज भी मु कहूची गोटे माने कैंसर रिलेटेड मु कहूची माने थायराइड कैंसर गोटे पेशेंट मोरो नेकी मु मो आ गोटे डिपार्टमेंट रे एचओडी सहित डिस्कशन करूथिली तो सार कहबा कथा कैंसर रो दुई टू टाइप्स रो से थायराइड कैंसर तो पैलेटिव हो किबा फॉलिकुलर कार्सिनोमा हो तो सेइथिरे कोन से माने जहाँ भी कथा हले लास्ट रे तंका माने डिस्कशन थिला जे न्यू गाइडलाइंस कोन कहूची दैट मींस न्यू रिसर्च एपका लेटेस्ट कोन ही जे तार गाइडलाइंस कोन कहूची सेइथि पई आमे जेतेबेले जहाँ भी रिसर्च करिबा प्रीवियस जिंस को एक्सेप्ट करिबा ताको यूटिलाइज करिबा बट आम मोटो रहिबा दरकार जे आमे कोनटा न्यू इन्वेंशन करिबा जोथि के आमे सोसाइटी को हो किबा आमे पब्लिक को हो जहाँ को आमे गोटे नुआ मेसेज पहुंचेबा जोटा कि यूनिवर्सल एक्सेप्टेड हेतिबो एंड डायरेक्टली हो इनडायरेक्टली हो सोसाइटी रो बेनिफिट्स होतबो यस और नो
Yes, ma'am.
and mainly some generalization may show that the phenomenon under the inquiry it is mainly in this type of research na the findings may help to the correct the inconsistencies or the errors in the existing body of knowledge and it's also important aspect of the scientific activity in verification of the conclusion verification of the conclusion which have found a place in the established system of knowledge. Okay, and mainly this in research, manipulation of the things, concept, or the symbols. Manipulation of the things, concept, or symbols means in research now we deals with the things very often, that is the nutrition. Many experiments are done on rats, and they may be given a very specific diet. Sometimes they may be starved. In essence, we handled them in a specific way. Manipulation, which is an aspect of experimentation. Science also deals with the concept. The terms which designate the things, abstract notions about which a science tries to make sense are concept. And that is the psychologist deals with the anger, emotion, problem solving potentials, fears, and the satisfaction. And mainly in research for the purpose of the generalizing. What is that purpose of generalizing? In research, we purposefully manipulate or control the things or the concept in order to arrive a statement of generality. That is, after conducting the research study, we should be able to arrive in at conclusion which are applicable to the population. That is the extent beyond the sample to the population segment we have choose to the study. Example, we find that a drug helps to reduce the blood glucose level is an experiment with the help of type 2 diabetic mellitus. Remember one thing, that the conclusion tells us that we can expect something in a class of things under a method or a degree level. It can be high or it can be low, and various conclusions therefore will vary in their degree of generality. And the scope of research in nutrition, the very first scope in the research in the nutrition, mainly it correction or the ecological studies and the spatial exposure groups also, migrants the studies and the secular trends, case control and the cohort study. In case control study, mainly the information about the previous diet of patient is gathered, and these compared with the individual free from the diseases. Okay. Case control and the cohort study. In short notes रे एटा प्राय आसीता माने क्वेश्चन आसीता मने रखिबो. Case control and the cohort study. Cohort study कौन ना case control study first कौन ना case control study होची information about the previous diet of the patient is gathered, and these compared with the individuals free from the diseases. Okay. In cohort study रे हमें कौन करिबा, the free individuals are followed up over time to determine the rates, vice versa the dietary components of the interest to the investigator. That is the cohort study. Case control study takes less time since we require the smaller number of subjects for the case control study. In cohort study have a very advantageous because dietary information is collected before diagnosis of the disease. In the cohort study, already the dietary information is already collected before the diagnosis of the any kind of diseases. Illness will not affect the recall. The deficiency is that the scientific must study very large number of subject. Okay. In the next class, I already we will discuss about the what is the scope of research in the nutritional science. आपण माने समस्त साइंस कोन भलसे पढ़ी के आसीथिबे मु ताकू मते प्रथमे बुझेबे तापरे मु क्लास में. Okay, so the 3.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you.
ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.